backyard shooting. Thank you. Roll call, Carol.
Mrs. Wright? Present. Mr. Redmond?
Here.
Mr. Francis?
Yes.
Mrs. Kane? Here. Mayor Nolan?
Here.
The first item on the agenda is the consent agenda.
Anybody have anything they want to take off, speak about, have separate?
Roll call.
Okay, all good? Yep. Okay, I'll offer that with inclusive, and with Rebecca.
Correct.
I'll
Offered by Mayor
second.
Nolan,
Second.
second by Mr. Redmond. Ms. Ryan?
Yes.
Mr. Redmond?
Yes.
Mr. Francis? Ms. Kane? Mayor Nolan?
Yes.
Moving on to resolution R13-197, resolution appointing part-time recreation aide, and that would be Austin O'Neill.
Mr. Hill, do you want to speak to this or any questions?
Yeah, in the recreation department, we had a vacancy created by resignation. We did advertise back in May and June of this year, and we had additional applicants that did work through the summer program, and based on the experience and the interest of those who did work through the summer, this candidate was recommended based on his experience and what he's done for with us.
And he did work here in the summer. I mean, the program was here, basically.
Yeah, the program was here, and that was the recommendation.
Okay, any questions from the table? Okay, I'll offer it. I'm sorry.
I thought that was a good question. Where is the place of employment?
Okay, I spoke to him about this, but yes.
Only it's on suspense. Where's the place?
What?
Where are they going to physically be?
I mean, at this point, there is no.
We're running programs up here at the school and at Henry Hudson Regional as well, so we have staffing needs.
And so, how does this person interact, or what's the workload between him and Jen?
What's the
Okay,
date?
we have a program called Kids on the Move that we've run for many, many years. That program's being transitioned up here,
Because
okay, due to the center operations. And we need more than 2 people on site when you're running a program with various rooms and activities going on.
A certain amount of people in the program.
Yeah,
It's
yeah. I mean, just to be in this room and then monitor kids that may need to go to the bathroom,
you need
we need, we have to be fully covered.
Okay. You good?
I spoke with Jen, and she said that Austin was the best.
Okay. So nothing. Okay, I'll offer that with all the conversation. Sounds like it's
Offered
done.
by Mayor Nolan,
I'll second that.
second by Ms. Ryan. Ms. Ryan?
Yes.
Mr. Redmond?
Yes.
Mr. Francis?
Yep.
Ms. Kane? Mayor Nolan?
Yes.
Moving on to resolution R13-200, resolution confirming Megan Nielsen appointment as public work preparer. This is
wanna
just a
speak?
correction.
Sorry.
This is just a correction in civil service.
Because of the this in response to the dissolving of the sewer authority?
No, this has nothing to do with the sewage authority law. This is a matter that was pending before civil service when this gentleman was promoted to the equipment operator position. Civil service noted in their file that he had been considered provisional since his time of employment. So we're cleaning up the record on that, and he's already carrying the other title, but we have to clean it up.
This is
on
just a
civil service.
clarification.
Yes, it is.
No difference in money or anything like
Yeah.
that. Okay. Any questions from the team? No? Okay, I'll offer it.
I'll second it.
Offered by Mayor Nolan, seconded by
Me.
Mr. Redmond?
Mr. Redmond. Ms. Ryan?
Yes.
Mr. Redmond?
Yes.
Mr. Francis? Ms. Kane? Mayor Nolan?
Yes.
Okay, we did want to add a resolution R13-201, resolution authorizing solicitation bids for solid waste recycling and bulk collection.
And that would be because of our contract is up through.
Correct, December 31st.
Okay. That one fast.
Offered by Ms. Kane,
I'll second it.
second by Mr. Nolan.
No questions from the table, right?
Ms. Ryan?
Yes.
Mr. Redmond?
Yes.
Mr. Francis?
Yes.
Ms. Kane? Mayor Nolan?
Yes. Just to give a clarification, we should have said it beforehand, but The current contract is up with Future at the end of this year. We did not have a renewal in there at the board's discretion. The new bid that's going to go out is going to include a renewal at our discretion, and we're asking for both once a month as part of this package. Okay? So everybody understands the little tweaks in there. Okay.
For second reading and public hearing, is bond ordinance 0-13-17, bond ordinance providing for wall reconstruction in by the Borough of Highlands in the County of Monmouth, New Jersey, appropriating $500,000 therefore and authorizing the issuance of $475,000 bonds or notes of the borough to finance part of the cost thereto. This was published in the August 30th edition of the New York Times, and we now go for a public hearing.
Does anybody want to give a brief description from the table of what this is, so we can make sure everybody understands what we're doing as far as our professional stuff?
Go ahead.
Sure, this is this is for the wall on Bay Street?
Yeah, this would be 13-17 by number.
Right, this is the, I got it, Steve, thanks. This is for 8 Bay Street. We have a retaining wall, an old retaining wall up on the, I guess it would be the northern side of the roadway that is failing. We have a large right-of-way that virtually almost goes down to the property, to the porch of the property. So the wall is in place to hold the roadway up, and it's definitely inside our right-of-way. The wall needs to be replaced. It's not going to last much longer. So that's what this ordinance does. It gets this wall replaced, and we can move on and virtually save the road and the property it's affecting.
Any questions from the public on 13-17 specifically? Name and address, please.
I thought that wall went off to the property.
Yep.
It was constructed by.
What?
It's on the end, right?
No, it's in the middle of the road. If you go up Woodland
Yeah.
and make the left, it's about 4 properties in. Yeah, the right-of-way there, well, the boroughs have maintained their wall for years. All right, the right-of-way there actually is much, much, much wider than the roadway. The right-of-way, if you look, the house is down the hill and the road's up here. The right-of-way actually comes almost down to the guy's porch. It's extremely wide there. I've got a copy of the survey because I wanted to verify it myself, because just first look at it, you would think it would be the property owner's responsibility to get this done. And it's obviously inside the right-of-way. And it actually doesn't hold his property, it holds our road up to where it is.
Are you going to move it in, then if it's on the right of way, to the end of the right of way?
Well, there's really no need to do that, because if you do that, then what do you do with the rest of the road? You know, you want to maintain the road. You know, you don't want this big bump out in a road that's narrow all the way through, unless you're going to do the whole road. That's a much larger, more expensive project. So you basically want to get the wall, put the wall back to where it is, and maintain the road, the stability of the road as it currently is, unless you're planning on widening the entire roadway.
Well, I was just wondering if you were going to do that in 2 years or
Carol, to be quite honest, I don't think we have the money to do that anywhere near in the near future.
And name and address, please.
Patty Beaver, 25 Bay Street. I'm actually further down from that piece of property. And it's the telephone pole that's kind of sticking in the middle of the road, and there's a 6-foot piece of property for my retaining wall. And I'd like to know if in fact the drainage and gutter system is going to be looked at, because the water is running and it is compromising the 25-foot long, 3-foot tall wall that is between the road, the telephone pole, and my wall.
And you're at 25?
Yeah.
All right, I will absolutely take a look at that.
I was up there on Tuesday night from about, I think,
It's
16
kind of
to
hanging,
30.
and I really just give us a priority, let the water go to the end of
Okay.
the road.
Do we need
Because it's coming on the property,
Okay, this is,
and it's
Hang on, guys.
really separating foundations.
Tim, you want to add on to that?
We are, as part of this project, Ms. Giva, we are talking about creating that I mean, I can't guarantee you that we're going to do the wall up the other end, but
Just give us a gutter for the, another
channel
drainage
water.
system,
Right.
I can't do another retaining wall. Okay, so please, if there's over a year, no more emails, Tim. Just give me a tour of it, I don't care. It's coming on my property, it needs to stop.
She's not exactly, if you go up there, you'll see it.
It's coming,
Comes up there
it's
too.
scouting out my wall. Thank you.
So we gotta get that part of it, right though?
Yep, I will take a look.
Okay, anyone else on this?
I'm not familiar.
Kim, I'm sorry, name and
Oh,
address.
sorry, Kim Swerk at 15 Shore Drive. I'm not familiar. Why is this wall failing? Is it just that old?
It is. It's that
compromised
old.
By drainage or?
It's an old timber tie retaining wall that was built, Lord knows when, back when. There's no dead men in it. You've got porous material behind it, which builds up static pressure, which pushes the wall out. you know, the wall's outlived its useful life, for lack of a better term.
Name and address.
Melissa Peterson, 17 Bay Street. I live actually across the street from Patty, and I can attest that I thought when I moved off of Barbary that I wouldn't have to deal with flooding roads, and it's up there when it floods, the whole street floods, and it goes right down in her yard. My other question is, how long is this going to take? Because Bay Street's very, very narrow, and if you're doing construction, I can't get by, and I need to know how long am I going to be blocked, or if I'm going to have to park somewhere else.
Right, once we establish a schedule, we'll definitely let the residents all know, we'll get alternate access plans in place. I know the other end coming up peak, it's usually like a one-way coming out, we'll make access to, so you could access both sides, you know, from there, if the road's blocked. I mean, you're gonna have a machine in the middle of that narrow road, so I mean, you're not gonna be able to get all the way through. Oh, absolutely.
They didn't do the right, I'll say this in the right way because it's still pending. The notice and the coordination of how they did it was not done correctly on Portland and South Bay either.
Oh, with the gas company?
Correct. And I know sometimes utilities are a little different.
Oh, absolutely,
I understand that.
Right.
There was times where people had to go down one-way street the wrong way. You can't have that, especially
Right.
up there. 100% right, you're talking about some areas, I don't know.
Exactly, we're not gonna be able to get a car through when they have a machine in the road to build the wall, so we'll have to,
If people are parking up there, you're not going to be able to get a truck down the street.
Forget that.
exactly. So whether it be police traffic directors to guide people up through the other way, but we'll get people access to their houses.
We did have PD went up there and fix the problem for this other issue the other day, so you can't have that. Any other question on this particular? Sir, name and address.
This is a $500,000 fix.
Yeah, what's the answer?
Thereabouts, Rick, this is a,
What is it, 50 feet wide, 25 feet wide, like 15 feet tall?
no, it's gotta go deeper than that, you've gotta sink these in, it's the whole width of the property. It's a steel and concrete wall, it's not gonna be, you know, you have no room for a granite block wall because you've got the, your tiebacks. So you're limited by what you could do there in that area.
Are you planning to abandon it or turn it over to the homeowner who's not? Are we going to do this or?
No, to be determined, I mean, that's up to the table if they wanna do that.
How long do you believe the old wall was there?
Frank, I tell you what, that old wall had to be there at least 30, 40 years. Just looking at it and the way it was built, I mean, it's an old wall.
I mean, it's a fair question.
No, absolutely.
Moving forward. Okay. Any other questions on this specific item? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing.
On for final reading and adoption is bond ordinance 0-13-17, bond ordinance providing for wall reconstruction in and by the Borough of Mountain in the County of Monmouth, New Jersey, appropriating $500,000, therefore and authorizing the issuance of $475,000 bonds or notes of the borough to finance part of the cost thereto.
I'll offer it.
Offered by Mayor Mellon.
I'll second this.
Second by Ms. Ryan. Ms. Ryan?
Yes.
Mr. Redmond?
Yes.
Mr. Francie?
Yes.
Ms. Kane? Yes. Mayor Mellon.
Yes.
Motion carries.
13, 19?
18, we're going to now review the planning board recommendations,
Oh,
which are on the
18.
table.
This is, we're relieving setbacks to the other property. House, I should say.
Yeah, I'll summarize, I don't have the planning board resolution in front of me, but my recollection is that the planning board found that it was consistent with the master plan, just that it requested that we review the consistency with state statute, because they passed a law, and the governor just signed on the automatic variance
That
bill.
hadn't happened when we started this process.
Right. I don't think there's any problem. I drafted a resolution for your consideration, which I'll read now, if somebody wants to move it. Whereas the governing body previously introduced and adopted O 13-18 at first reading, and whereas the governing body is in receipt of the resolution of the planning board adopted on September 12, 2013, it was recommended that the governing body review the proposed amendments for consistency with the municipal land use law and any recent enactments or new rules and regulations promulgated by the state since Hurricane Sandy. Whereas the governing body is aware of recent legislation, particularly Public Law 2013, Chapter 107, which provides similar relief as O-13-18. Whereas the governing body finds that O-13-18 is of limited scope and applicability and is intended to be consistent with Public Law 2013, Chapter 107, the automatic variance bill. Therefore, no revisions to O-13-18 are necessary. Now therefore be resolved as follows. The governing body accepts and acknowledges receipt of the recommendations of the planning board. For the aforementioned reasons, the governing body finds that no revisions of O-13-18 are necessary, and the ordinance may be considered for final reading and consideration as introduced and adopted at first reading.
Okay.
Someone like to offer a motion to accept that resolution?
We all open the public hearing?
No.
Do the resolution first, then
Okay. I'll offer it.
Alderman Mayor Noel.
Second by Mr. Redmond.
Second by Mr. Reddy. Ms. Ryan.
Yes.
Mr. Redmond.
Yes.
Mr. Francie.
Yes.
Ms. King. Yes. Mayor Noel.
Yes.
Okay, on for second reading, public hearing is ordinance 0-13-18, the ordinance of the Borough of Highlands in the County of Monmouth, the State of New Jersey, amending Chapter 21 zoning and land use regulations of the general ordinances of the Borough of Highlands concerning setback requirements for house lifting as a result of hurricane Sandy.
Okay, good.
This ordinance was published in the August 30th edition of the Two River Times. We now open for public hearing.
Can you just explain why did we do the vote?
This is not the vote on the ordinance, this is the vote on the planning board's recommendation.
Okay. So we'll do the public hearing on 13-18. Any questions just on 13-18? So you're trying to give people relief to lift houses, not getting variances, certain setbacks, things like that that would come across that people are putting permits in. Close public hearing.
On for final reading and adoption is zoning ordinance 0-13-18, the ordinance of the Borough of Highlands in the County of Monmouth and the State of New Jersey, amending Chapter 21 zoning and land use regulations of the general ordinances of the Borough of Highlands concerning setback requirements for house lifting as a result of Hurricane Sandy.
I'll offer.
Offered by Mayor Knopf. Second by Ms. King. Ms. Ryan.
Yes.
Mr. Redmond.
Yes.
Mr. Francie. Ms. King. Yes. Mayor Knopf.
Yes.
Motion carries. On for second reading and public hearing is bond ordinance 0-13-19, bond ordinance providing for the hazard mitigation program in the Borough of Highlands in the County of Monmouth, New Jersey, appropriating $1,134,000, therefore, and authorizing the issuance of $1,144,000 bonds or notes of the borough to finance the cost thereof. This was published in the August 30th edition of the Two River Times. We now be able to public hearing.
Steve, you want to do
Yeah.
a quick synopsis of it?
Basically, this had to do with Hurricane Irene, and also we requested waivers of the down payment of 3 bond ordinances, of which this was one. And I went to the local finance board on Wednesday, this past Wednesday, and we have approval from the local finance board on the waivers on all 3. This is a bond ordinance that basically we will be utilizing as a cash funding mechanism to do the projects, to get them underway, and awaiting A, the FEMA money, and B, homeowners' contributions. If they flow through us, they may go directly to the contractors. But this will cover us at least getting the cash in place to get the project started. And the intent is that hopefully we will be reimbursed through FEMA for at least 75% of whatever would be our costs, and I would believe they would only be the soft costs involved in this and that. But at the end of the day, any outside costs would be borne by the homeowner and not by the borough.
Any questions on 13-19?
Just a little clarification. Eileen Scanlon, 22 Fifth Street. Just a little clarification, please, on this $1,144,000 hazard mitigation grant. What is it going to do? I don't know.
This is for house lifting for
From Irene.
yeah, from Hurricane Irene. This was applied for through FEMA, so it's a grant for FEMA that will go, help X amount of people lift their houses.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions on this one?
Sorry, Steve, the 25% share that the town pays is essentially to raise how many houses?
I think that
About
this
10.
10 was a
Yeah.
Was it first 12, right?
Yeah, somewhere about 10.
There's a list in here of actual of the people.
And that share is going to be put into our regular tax rate.
Actually, that comes back from the residents.
Yeah, that's my
That
understanding.
25% comes back as 30,000 coming back from the
Next one
residents.
up there.
Yes,
Okay. That's the clarification I wanted to make sure.
yes.
That's how
This
it's
way.
done.
Correct.
Right, at the end of the day, the borough's got the money out there, but at the end, afterwards, the 25% share comes back, it's borne upon the homeowners as ICC money, or in case they didn't have flood insurance, it's out of pocket.
So we'll periodically report on the status of what we played out, what we've got back, what we got FEMA.
We could do that.
Huh?
We could do that.
Very good. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, well, I would say that at least a quarterly type of thing. Okay.
On for final reading and adoption is bond ordinance 0-13-19, bond ordinance providing for the hazard mitigation program in the Borough of Highlands in the County of Monmouth, New Jersey, appropriating $1,144,000, therefore authorizing the issuance of $1,144,000 bonds or notes of the borough to finance part of the cost thereof.
I'll offer.
By name on.
Second.
Second by Mr. Francie. Ms. Ryan?
Yes.
Mr. Redmond?
Yes.
Mr. Francie?
Yes.
Ms. Kane? Yes. Mayor Knopf?
Yes.
Motion carries. On for second reading and public hearing is bond ordinance 0-13-20. Bond ordinance providing for the reconstruction of the North Street Pump Station in by the Borough of Highlands, the County of Monmouth, New Jersey, appropriating $1,800,000, thereof and authorizing the issuance of $1,621,923 bonds or notes of the borough to finance part of the cost thereto. This was published in the August 30th edition of the New York Times and may now be open for public hearing.
Let's take questions from the table first. Does anybody have any questions on this? 13, 20, oh, I'm sorry, 13, 20.
Dale, I thought we were soliciting pump permits, and at this point we're going to repair as is, and we're looking at a number on the order of 100 grand, 200 grand, some number.
I did that and gave that to you, I just haven't heard back from you. You have those numbers, I've given them to you twice now. So Pumping Services provided those proposals, and you asked me to email it to you, and I did, just I haven't heard anything back from you.
Could we move on the pumping, I mean,
If you want to, I mean, right now, you guys had me design a pump that would withstand the watershed. I mean, it's up to you what you want to do with it, but, we've got a design virtually in place based on what was requested. In the interim, if you want to use Pumping Service to put back what was there, that's up to you, but you still have this design in place
Do you remember the cost on the top of your head? We didn't get that. We all didn't get
of,
that. Services for Francie.
I want to say in the magnitude, maybe 50, if that,
50,000.
yeah.
And how?
And that basically puts the pump back into
Is
place.
that a reoccurring fee or?
No, it's just, it puts back what was there virtually, without minus the doghouse.
And what's the guarantee if any that that's in the way?
There's no guarantee.
So it's basically a $50,000 Band-Aid fix?
For lack of a better term, yeah.
Dale, is this the one that we had made some comments that we thought perhaps was over-designed
Mhm.
for what was
Right,
needed at that?
right.
And why, can you refresh me, why was it? Why did you think that this was the best?
All right, the reason is, let me back up all the way to the storm. When the pump station left us, it virtually took off. We came out with a pump station that would withstand storms, designed to codes and standards. And what it basically did, it lifted the components up out of the floodplain. It was a much more stable structure. It was a larger structure. The pump that was in there was a 3,000 gallon per minute pump, which some would say, yes, that was adequate. That was adequate for a main trunk line that was always 3/4 of, filled with silt since I've been here. And I've been here 10 years, right? When the pipes are clean and you have the full watershed you're taking care of, it's a 20,000 gallon per minute watershed. So we had two 10,000 gallon pumps in that because we couldn't fit a 20 by itself. We also put a generator in there for backup power. But we couldn't use a generator, we couldn't use a diesel pump full time because the state wouldn't let us because of noise and emissions. So we can use a generator for emergency purposes for backup power, but we have to stay with electric power. So basically what it does is, right now, if the pump goes out, if power goes out, you lose the pump. It doesn't work. You have capability to get the road drained quicker, and I say drain quicker because even though you're fixing the bulkhead around your pump, you still have porous bulkhead along the private properties. And you still have outfalls that don't have flaps on them or duck bills, that water will come back up to the street. So this will drain that area quicker and hopefully keep that water down. This is something we're looking at FEMA to get some funding out of. And that's where we are right now. We didn't want to put back what was there because it wasn't adequate, and quite frankly, DEP wouldn't permit the outfall the way it was.
Okay, and this would be going on the exact same site that the former pump was?
Yes, it stays inside the right of way.
Okay.
And what is the community contribution to this project?
What's that? Right, we also have, thank you, Mr. Hill, there's also CDBG money we reprogrammed. That was initially for the trunk line into North Street Pump Station. Neighborhood of 180,000 that we could put towards the station itself. So that would be a help. You know,
What would be an idea of the amount of money FEMA makes? Percentage-wise or dollar amount total?
you know, we're still looking at that as an improvement project. FEMA's been resistant on some of these items, so it's tough to say what they'd be willing to contribute. But you can't put something back that's not built to codes and standards. You know, it's just
The old is not correct?
the old was something that Washington built, I think.
I'm looking at the public portion now. 1320 bond ordinance for North Street Pump Station. Name and address, please, sir.
$1.8 million, way too much money to spend on roads and pump stations. That's all there is to it, there was no, that pump you had down there worked so well that it would cavitate because it would draw all the water out of that.
Rick, that was with a full pipe though. That was with a pipe that was filled with silt. You know, if we want to put something back, we could easily put a 3,000 gallon pump back in there. And but if you ever get to the point where you clean those trunk lines out down the road, then that 3,000 pump
What's
ain't.
the sense of spending $1.8 million if we're not going to put the trunk lines in? There's
Well, if you-
probably a wall on Bay Street of $500,000. $180,000 isn't enough money to put that trunk line in. So
But-
what are you saying this program's going to cost to get this job done? $3 million?
Maybe.
Too much money.
You know, I mean, it takes up a large area of town, uptown too.
Way too much money.
I'm going to ask if we could table this for the next second meeting in October. It sounds like we need to get a little more information on this from my perspective.
Mayor, can I just recommend one thing?
Please.
That you continue the public hearing.
Oh, I have no problem with that. I would say
And then,
tomorrow.
and then,
I don't want anybody to
Right, and this-
weigh in and then we don't vote.
right, and then carry to
Because we might
the,
have more information at the next meeting, that's all.
This doesn't authorize a solicitation for bids. This just basically just puts money in place. It could be much less down the road, you know, if that's what you guys choose. But this is the station that you guys had requested.
What the piping system would help.
Okay, we got any more?
We have other things.
Does anybody want to weigh in? We're understanding we will have another public meeting on this, and we do it again in October, and it may be different circumstances. I want to see.
I Ken Braswell, I have the property on the corner of Bay and North. Right there, we can attest that during heavy storms or high tides, that pump station as it was prior to the Sandy for 30 years had absolutely no effect whatsoever. It did not evacuate the storm rings at all. So I would say spending money to put it back the way it was would be throwing money out.
I don't.
Now, but on the other hand,
We don't know if you have to go that far.
it does sound a little expensive, but I don't know. But if you did spend money and go with the brand new one, does that somehow fit into the storm drain?
That's my point, so let's investigate that and see how it works before we spend this money.
The issue with the water from your house, your building, getting to that part, is the pipes are filled with sand.
That too? Yes.
And that's why that electric pump, that 3,000 gallon a minute pump runs dry until we fix the drain system. And when we,
During high tide, it never runs dry because the tide keeps it full.
well,
Pumping water in a circle, pumping water out of the bay and back into the bay.
That's a rumor you heard when you're angled even more, right?
No, well, I go down there and I look at it.
That's because the flat on the end of North Street doesn't work to keep the water from coming
There-
back in.
No, it's not the flat doesn't work, there's no flat.
Well, there is a flat.
We don't have to
It's
hear.
expanded in, it's not right.
Yeah, man, somebody else can do it first.
Yes. Eileen Scanlon, 22 Fifth Street. I just wanted to put on the table the question of how does this type of infrastructure work that appears to be needed? fits in with, whatever's going to be, done with flood mitigation after Sandy.
That's the $1 million question, literally right now. That's
Do I
why
get,
we don't have that answer, that's why we're, in the end, we're gonna have the public hearing tonight, but we're not gonna, I mean, I'm gonna vote not to vote tonight, to carry it.
okay, so that's the clear.
You okay then?
Yeah.
Maureen Welch, 50 Valley Street. Is there a minimum financial threshold in which before it gets bonded, it goes to a referendum? Or is the governing body empowered to go up to any limit that they feel is necessary?
I don't think there is a
There's a debt limit, okay?
percentage-wise. or-
Yeah, there's a percentage debt limit. We're required to file annually, an annual debt statement, and then every time we do an ordinance that authorizes debt, we file what's called the supplemental bond ordinance. And in there, there's a calculation as to what percentage of debt we're actually at to the maximum limit. The borough's way under the max limit, but even if the borough were to exceed the max limit, it would go to the state, to the local finance board for approval to exceed the maximum. That would be the next step if we were to exceed the maximum. If the residents wanted to challenge a bond ordinance, in the statutes, there's a section that goes through how a bond ordinance would be challenged by the residents. Okay, but the debt limit is the council has the authorization to go to the debt limit, which, like I said, we're not even close to. And if they were to exceed the debt limit, they would go to the local finance board for permission to exceed.
Have we ever had to do that?
No.
How close to the debt limit are we?
I don't have the exact, well,
Percentage-wise,
Well,
I mean.
we're not, well, before Sandy, okay? Before Sandy, we weren't even like on
We had a
the,
lollipop
What
and
is-
a summer.
we were so far away, it's not
What
funny.
is our debt? 10% of?
3%, it's 3% of the equalized value,
So
the average
3%
equalized value over 3
500,000.
years. Huh?
We're roughly 550 million, give or take. So
550 is the net value. This is the equalized value. Let me just think about 1 second where I have the actual, where I have the doc. Okay, here we go. With these ordinances that we have on tonight, the 4 of them that we're on tonight, the max limit is 3%, okay? We're at 1.91. So right now, our net debt with these new ordinances comes to 13,190 in round figures. Okay, so we can still go another whole percent above this before we're even close to that max. And one thing that needs to be understood about hazard mitigation, the reconstruction of North Street, and the next one, which is removal of the disaster-related debris, they're all going to be funded through FEMA to some level, which is going to knock these way down. Like the North Street being an exception, North Street's one where we're going to have to really expend dollars. In the other 2 situations, hazard mitigation and removal of disaster-related debris, that's really just a funding mechanism to pay now and get reimbursed later.
And
That's going to get taken off the books. Both of those will get taken off the books. As that money comes in, they're going to be reduced. So we won't, this 1.9 is going to come down. North Street would probably be the exception in that that's all got to get worked out with FEMA, and that's going to take longer. These other ones are approved grant programs.
And then as the sewer dissolves,
Well, the sewer.
Is that separate or does it
Yeah,
count?
well, sewer's on the a part of the debt statement.
Already.
But sewer is termed self-liquidating, which means it has no effect on the debt limit. Okay, as long as it stays self-liquidating, which means as long as it's showing a profit.
Meaning there's money coming in.
Yeah, there's more coming in than going out. That has no effect on the debt limit. Okay, so really, we have quite a ways to go on the debt limit.
That's about 6 million.
Yeah.
I have a question to follow up
Name and
on.
address, yeah.
Kim Square, 315 Shore Drive. Just to follow up on the ratio, it's the average equalized value over 3 years of what? Our tax base?
Well, are you familiar with the net value? Are you familiar with the term net value?
That's familiarized everybody.
Okay. Net value is what you're on the books, the total of what you're on the books for. Okay, taxable net value, the total of everybody in the town. Equalized value is a formula that the county and the state go through to come up with a real, I want to say, market number compared statewide. Okay, and what they do is they provide us with 3 years of worth of numbers, and the average of those 3 years is what we use as the calculation against the debt limit.
Okay.
Okay, that's how it's done.
Kelly Ward, 270, State Route 36. I'm curious what the connection is with our meeting next week with FEMA, where we get to prioritize our needs and their ability to give funding to what we're saying is needed. Is there a connection with what the town is planning and what FEMA is helping us put together?
Well, if you're talking in terms of this ordinance, my answer to that would be no. This is a specific item related to the disaster that's already occurred. In other words, we get reimbursed at 90% for damages that we've incurred, and fits in that category. What you're talking about is more, I think, in the long-range planning of.
That's long-term recovery.
Right, but Dale suggested that FEMA wasn't connected to wanting to definitely give this money, and I thought if we all go and say, this is one of our #1 priorities, that they would actually say, okay, we're not gonna fight you on giving us this money.
And I think that you're probably right. If we made that like a top 3 or top 4 thing, it would help us over that time period that they're here to get the money for that. Or the design for it, or the soft cost to take it for it. Yes, sir.
Jeff Wilson on 61 Burglary. Is this whole pump and collapse sand in advance, is that been discussed with the unemployed engineers as possible?
Oh, I know it's been some discussion. You want to enlighten them?
Several years ago, they were talking about, well, this is pre-Sandy, they're actually talking about building a new station comparable to this as part of their plan. Now, if their plan ever does move to fruition, you're still about 10 years out, I would say. So even if you do that, you'd still be, I guess, prone to additional floods for the next 8-10 years. So they did mention it as part of their original plan.
We've had conversations with them recently, and all I've heard is about 50 pounds. This sounds a lot more reasonable and something that would actually work.
Right.
Make sure that this is being, we're talking about.
When I first met with them about 5 years ago, they had a plan similar to what they provided a couple months ago with flood walls and levees, and the North Street pump station was part of that plan of building a new pump station.
Anybody else questions? Okay, close the vote. Make a motion to take the second
Mr.
meeting in
Francis,
October.
seconded by,
Karen, second meeting in October.
and we're closing the public hearing, we're just carrying
We're going
the
to close it for today. We'll continue to the next meeting.
public hearing.
Sure. Please.
Ms. Ryan?
Yes.
Mr. Redmond?
Yes.
Mr. Francie?
Yes.
Ms. Kane? Yes. Mayor Knowles?
Yes.
On the second reading, public hearing is bond ordinance 0-13-23, bond ordinance providing for the removal of disaster-related debris and the demolition of various structures in and by the borough of Highland, the county of Monmouth, New Jersey, appropriating $2,300,000, therefore authorizing the issuance of $2,300,000 bond for notes of the borough to finance part of the cost thereof. This was published in the August 30th edition of the River Times.
Steve, would you like to speak to this?
Sure. This is the ordinance that funds the demolition and debris removal on abandoned homes. The $2.3 million number was developed through Arcadis, through their experience in other communities on working on these types of projects. This ordinance, again, was approved at the local finance board with a waiver of the 5% down payment. And this ordinance will be funded through FEMA at 90% according to Arcadis, and those properties will be subject to liens for the borough's share of the cost. And this again is was done this way in order to provide cash up front to begin the project, awaiting FEMA reimbursements. And the amount we actually go to debt on this will be determined with further, with me having further conversations with Arcadis as to the speed of which FEMA will or won't reimburse us. And we'll make a decision at that point. We have, I want to just let the council know one thing in regards to all the bond ordinances that we've had except for the retaining wall. Anything related to the hurricane situation, the Monmouth County Improvement Authority and the county freeholders working together are trying to help the municipalities and are going to have a pool put in place to finance all the related hurricane debt that we need to authorize throughout the county, which is going to be a huge help to us. This is going to be one of those, along with North Street, if that is approved, along with hazard mitigation. Hazard mitigation is the one thing that we're working on the county with because that was Hurricane Irene, and they weren't sure they can mix Irene with Sandy, but hopefully they will. But I just wanted to mention that that we will be going into the county pool with these items in order to make them more marketable and to save money. So that's the game plan on this one. But this one, we're hoping to, at the end of the day, be 90% reimbursed and down the road, reimbursed through liens on the properties being sold, if the owners don't come through and redeem those liens.
Question from the table first.
Mr. Tucker, is this bond ordinance funding Arcadis in that $560,000 proposal?
Yes. That ties to this ordinance.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Yeah, just on the demo site of part of it, did they give you a time that they're going to start with that?
Well, this will be the process. If this ordinance is adopted tonight, okay, and is advertised in a speedy fashion, we have a 20-day estoppel period on all bond ordinances. If everything is done on a timely fashion, that professional service contract, or however the borough attorney determines that will be done, will be put on for the next council meeting to be approved, and then Arcadis can start.
How many is the initial?
Steve, when do you think the second meeting in October is going to be?
Probably
It's
the
20
second.
days, stop all notification.
Depends on when you get it in the paper. Depends on how fast you can get it in.
Yeah, what's the initial count? I know we started, I remember, we're mitigating.
You know what, I haven't, as far as knockdowns, I haven't seen that list in a while. I mean, it's got to be in the neighborhood of 50 or 60.
Yeah, I think the most current discussion with FEMA too was, at one time we were up at a level of 100 or so. I think part of the good news on that is some of those properties that were identified originally have actually been they've actually been doing construction and rehabbing their properties. So I think the last number we had was about 56.
Arcadis used 50 in their estimate.
And some they wanted to, you had to appeal or let it go through the process of permits or something. Correct. Okay. Let's open that up to the public. This is 1323.
It seems like we're doing a lot of bond ordinances. And it seems like there's a little overlapping between 19 and 23. First, we're going to raise them, then we're going to tear them down.
Yeah, it's not the same ones
I
back.
know it's not the same ones that are being raised and torn down. But who determines that? And you're putting a lot of hope on getting the money back from the people. And
Well, in
I
$19
just hope that we have a good check on all of it.
Well, in 19, it's my understanding that there was an extensive application process to get qualified for this program in the first place for 19. And that's all been handled, I believe, partially by T&M. Okay, so that was a whole grant application with specific properties in the application. Now, if it's determined that the house has to come down, then it's out of that program and into 23, okay? But that would be a determination made at the time when the people, now that 19's adopted, and we do the professional service contract for whoever's going to monitor the program, once they go look at the house, obviously, they'll know right away whether or not we're still in the ballpark of house lifting or a demolition. But to count as demolition, to count for 23, I think you got to be a walkaway. You know what I mean? Like it has to be an abandoned type situation, whereas 19's a different story. So, that will all be coordinated since Arcadis, I believe, is going to monitor both. That's, yeah.
Well, there has to be good monitoring, because somebody says, I'm gonna raise my house, and then they get the money and raise their house, and then they walk away from it.
Well, that doesn't work like that.
We also
Right, it's a
have
reimbursable.
on
Yeah.
getting funds.
It's reimbursable.
Right, that's a reimbursable, Carol.
Services, God forbid, kids down. So that's another concern too, but you're right, Carol, it has to be very diligent.
Lori, 150 Valley. Is there a timeline that this is going to be completed by? And also, given the fact that this will impact traffic in front of people's homes and neighbors, when is that list going to be available to the public?
Next meeting is what's the process of the next meeting?
Well, the process, once we clear the 20-day estoppel period, the professional service contract, the contract to hire the professional will be awarded, okay? At that point, Arcadis will come back to the council,
In the public.
if that's how the council wants it, and we'll go through that process. I mean, I believe we've had public meetings where they have done slide presentations
There's been
on that
some,
process.
but it was never
Right, they'll have to go through and now, do a much more extensive evaluation of those 50 homes that they're estimating are out there, and go through all. They'll have to look at each one separately, and yeah, and I think they'll probably, in my opinion, in this particular case, because this is a large-scale operation, be briefing the council and the public continually on what's going on there.
And FEMA does have to concur. Even though we've had homes that have been reported and identified, we've been going back and forth with FEMA on that issue because sometimes they talk about structural that you really can't see. So it's still a moving target on that. Until the right of entries and all that formal paperwork is done, that house doesn't really exist on the list for sake of coming down. So once that paperwork is concluded, that the right of entries and all the guarantees and all the permissions are granted to go ahead and move, that's really when we got that, I'll say, a house really targeted to come down. So we're going to try to coordinate that as best we can with Arcadis to sort of spread it out so we're not tying up one whole block, the best that we can. But it's going to be a challenge. It's going to be a challenge.
So the list will become public after
Everything
is
yes.
Once it's finalized.
on the legal.
Now,
Yeah.
we'll make it public when FEMA approves it.
Yeah, for instance, if we put the 100 houses out there, I know we've been asked this question many times, we're really doing a disservice and to just put numbers out there like that. And we've seen that number's come in half. So we don't know if it's going to come down anymore. And if FEMA decides that the interpretation that it should be taken down and they don't agree, then we've got to go through a whole other process with them.
Sounds like the best case scenario at the end of this year for the list.
Yeah.
End of the year.
For the list.
And they haven't given a target on, will it be a 12-month project, an 18-month project?
We have, according to FEMA regs, what they'll do is we're requesting actually extensions for this particular project because of where we're at and the number of homes that are impacted. So we're working with FEMA to get an extension on the timeline.
What's the original year?
About a year, but they pull that back, and it's like a moving target again as well.
Just as an aside, I had a meeting today with some FEMA representatives, and Carl, with some FEMA representatives, and they're still working on Katrina, so if you're worried.
We just did tonight, Irene. So, and that was on, a lot of that was on that side.
Katrina was being
Somebody else had it.
Eileen Scanlon, 2250. This is kind of a long-term question, but after you take these properties down, now you have lots, what happens? I mean, is there a view for what happens after that?
The long-term recovery, we hope to have someone looking at that. That's going on for the last 6 years with FEMA. a lot of the residents in
Yeah,
Ustream.
yeah.
There's also the,
Does the property belong then to the town?
No.
No, it still belongs to whoever the individual property owns.
Except now they have an assessment on it.
A lien, okay.
there's no improvement then, and there's a lien. So immediately the town.
And Mayor, also, some property owners may be willing to work along with the program. So that's another thing that we're,
The catch 22 you're going to have is a 51% rental downtown. A lot of them.
right.
Maybe not.
Melissa McAleer, 52 Barbary. I have a follow-up question from the last meeting, but you had left already, sir. Section 20 costs, what does it actually indicate?
It's referred to as the soft costs of the project. It's really almost everything but the actual construction. So that's your professional fees, your engineers, your planners, your architects, your lawyers, your accountants. It's permits. It's, it can, any studies you might have to have done.
Would it cover a project manager if there was one?
Yes, yes. So it really covers, for the sake of the best explanation, it's really everything, think of everything but the construction cost. Now, the argument could be made, like with the construction manager, he's part of the construction cost. That would be a legitimate debate. But the bottom line is I build these numbers to cover what I think is more than enough. Because if I have to come back, let's say we're going to exceed them. If I have to come back, then it's going to cost me $450 to amend the ordinance, okay, from the attorney's office. So I build them so that I don't have to do that. But so that if something does happen, and let's say it's a road job, probably the easiest one to look at. Let's say there's a big amendment to the road job. There's going to be a big change order, and it's going to create additional engineering work. That I'm covered for that. I don't have to come back and amend the ordinance for something like that and have to waste $450. So that's how we build the soft costs in. And this one will have significant soft costs. There's no doubt about it. This one's going to have a lot of soft costs.
Thank you. I guess my question is, particularly now that the list has dwindled down to 50 houses, but even with 100 houses, we know that an average demo job is about $8,500. Based on the number that's actually being asked for, we're looking at about $46,000 per house. So I'm just wondering, how are we basing that, and is that something that Arcadis is quoting us as much in terms of how much they're looking to charge us for each house?
Arcadis worked up the figures based on their experience. Arcadis has a contract with Brick and is doing the demolition in Bricktown. And Arcadis came through and gave me, they based it on FEMA debris forecasting guidance. Okay? So I don't know where you got your 8,500 from. Okay?
From a direct quote.
But you know what? Disregard that.
We just had a house taken down 2 years ago, cost us $19,000.
Disregard what you hear on the street because we're a municipality operating completely under different guidelines, okay? Then you taking somebody off the street and getting some kind of figure, we can't operate like that.
Steve, is the price going for contamination?
Yes.
And I can appreciate that, but it just seems there's a huge discrepancy between 10,000 and almost 50,000. And I'm just wondering.
Well, they have there's a whole assumption guideline here on how they determine each and every piece. Now, they don't look at it in terms of a singular house either. Like included in here is we're going to demolish houses. Some may have some tires in the garage. So they got every single thing itemized for disposal and the cost attached to that. And so this is pieced together based on those type of assumptions. And these are assumptions coming from FEMA because there's hazardous waste in probably every house. There could be asbestos in some of these houses. All that's built into this. Okay? The contractor gives you a price. I don't know if that's sight unseen. I don't know if he's been in your house looking at what's around the pipes. Who gets the residual value of the recyclables if there's copper in that house? I don't know. Okay, but this is all costed out according to FEMA guidance, and I would say these figures will probably bear out per one house might come in at 20 and one might come in at 40. You never know, depending on what's in each particular home, but this is averaged out over the total project. Now, the one thing that you have to also understand is if it comes at the end of the day that it was only 30 homes, the chances are good we won't expend nearly $2.3 million. But if it comes to 50, we probably will. You know what I mean? So it really is dependent on, at the end of the day, what the final number is that we have to take down.
Typically, there's still houses that are it's down to that number now.
No, there's still some, there's still some
It's more
back
than,
and
it's more
forth.
than a couple.
Yeah.
Thank you. I just want to follow up on Mayor Nolan's point that once the houses are demoed, we have no assessed value on a structure, and there's a lien, so the town is going to lose money. But I think you have to look at the positive is that there's now a vacant lot. If you get too contiguous, a developer might come in, buy them both, build a bigger house, you'll get a higher rateable. You know,
But the
so-
initial is a negative.
Right. But I just want to follow up with some positive, because we seem to be dealing with a lot of negative in this town lately.
We're just dealing with
and-
reality right now. But the reality is there will be about 30 or 40% loss initially.
Right.
And then the long term is
And
going
then,
to be fantastic.
and then a bigger bounce.
No question.
So let's just,
On the housing long-term coverage and most of our counterparts are in here. We are working on ideas of how you fill those vacant lots, how you make them buildable, what we're gonna do. Hopefully, if it's chosen at the 25th, meeting, we kind of refill those spots. But I think for now, it seems like a big number, but it's really, it's a life hazard for your neighbors. Everybody wants to live next to this, and you can't.
Gotta take this out.
So,
and your neighbors' assessed value go up because they're not living next to the hazard.
right.
Brian Ackerman, 52 Barbary. I'm not sure if I was going to hold this question for later. I don't know if it's appropriate for this, but regarding how the determination is made of what constitutes a house that's going to be taken down, I understand that it seems to be that it wasn't quite what we thought initially. Tim had explained that pretty well. It's got structural damage. But then what, if any, plan is in place or being developed for houses that are just full of mold that don't qualify for this grant, but are still possibly hazardous to the neighborhood because we're surrounded by them. So I don't know if you want to address that now or later on in the meeting, whether that's appropriate here.
I don't think there's one answer. I think we're working on several answers.
We're
very honest.
We are trying to ensure, and there again with the properties that are identified, that we keep pushing those, knowing that some of those conditions also exist. So FEMA has a lot of guidance on what they do and how they do it, and we're trying to really push them towards recognizing that structures like that may exist. And we're not asking them to give us a break, but we're asking them to consider everything that we want them to look at.
I think part of those homes are the ones we're talking about appealing.
I'm sorry, say again?
Part of the appeal process, because we were at a 3-digit number.
Okay, so then there is a possibility that they could be included in this grant.
If not this, maybe something long-term. We've
Okay.
identified them with it.
Okay, and
And
that's,
some are in an appeal process for this grant.
okay,
So I don't think there's going to be one answer for every single one.
okay.
This is reimbursed by FEMA also?
Yeah, this one's a 90% reimbursable by FEMA.
That's part of this, and that's probably what's going to drive the cost up from the average quote to 10,000 to 40,000 because asbestos and mold. That's why that cost will accelerate at some point.
Worry about 50 Valley, it's my understanding that the current building code states that if a house is more than 50% damaged, that it's the municipality's obligation to take it down.
No.
Are we waiving that part of the building code, which I just read?
It's not, if it's 50% or more damage, the borough does not have the obligation to take it down. It gets deemed substantially damaged but not condemned. There's a difference between, say, catastrophic damage being, condemned or substantial damage. Substantial damage is a monetary value. You could take a substantially damaged house and fix it and have a, lack of a better term, a normal house again. But doesn't necessarily mean that has to come down.
I believe I read, and I can send it to you online there, a quote that said it's more than 50% is responsibility to mitigate or take it down. And, you know, since neither of us probably have it with us,
Right.
I'm happy to cite the section and everything, but I was just wondering if because we've had a catastrophe and there are parts of the existing, property, building and maintenance codes that we're waiving or ignoring, or going to a different set of guidelines like or should we all be, because we all have the right to, bring these to your attention, and if you have more than 5, it's a petition, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
So I'm just asking, do we still use that as a guiding document?
Well, the key word you said there was mitigate.
Right.
All right, so mitigate is if you're substantially damaged, 51% or more, you are required to meet the guidelines of the current FEMA borough DEP guidelines. At the elevation, in the case of a commercial or condominium, it's floodproofing. But at that point, you're required to mitigate, not necessarily knock down. In some cases, it's got to come down. There's no doubt. But you're at the minimum, you're required to mitigate.
But then how long do you have to do that?
Right now, we're giving people to the 1st of 2017 to mitigate. You have to give them. Well, listen, some people have the money to lift, some don't. Some are waiting on grant. No, well, I am. All right. So basically, you have to give them some time to get money in place to actually do it. There's a lot of people in town that want to lift. They're getting back into their homes and living there, and so on and so forth right now. But you have to give them time to lift. They don't have the 50 or 100,000 sitting in their bank accounts, or have the means to get it. So they're waiting on grant money right now, and I feel for those people too. Bottom line, it'd be great to have everybody up in the air within 6 months. It's not going to happen. People don't have the money to do that. And if we're going to require them, which we are, require them to move forward and mitigate, whether it's floodproofing, lifting, whatever the case may be for that situation, you have to give them time to get resources in place.
Kim Swerker, 315 Shore Drive, how much time do we give them to get the mold out of the house?
That's a whole different story.
Because I think that's our concern, is not
That's
so
right,
much
Kim.
that our
That's an
neighbor
entirely different issue, but I agree with you on that too. That's something that's a short-term urgency. Where long-term is mitigation. Elevating the house ultimately. Short-term urgency is to gut the house, get the mold out of it, and basically make it healthy again. Right now you have a lot of sick houses, so to speak.
Right, so what's the time frame, and to follow up on with Maureen's question, are we waiving part of the code, and you said mitigate is the key word. What is going to be done to mitigate these houses that may not qualify for the Arcadis program, but are still sitting there full of mold?
Right, and that's something that me personally, I'm not involved with. It'd be something better for either Bruce or Tim to answer, but that's something that I'm not involved with personally.
Which houses in particular?
Ones that are specifically in the money.
Ones that are not on the Arcadis list,
That are not going to be demolished.
that are not even on the list to be demolished, but yet are still sitting there full of mold and vacant.
The only thing we can do is pursue the current ordinance that's in effect, and we have to have money in place to go down that road. This pot of money coming from FEMA allows us to do certain houses that were identified. Any of those other houses that don't qualify for this, we're going to have to come up with the financial resources somehow to attack that problem. We don't have money in place right now to do that.
And we're assuming these homeowners are.
I make no assumptions, ma'am.
On the bond?
Yeah, please feel free to jump in here.
Let's stay with 1323, please. All right, I don't want to. I'm going to close the public portion on 1323.
On final reading and adoption is 0-13-23, bond ordinance providing for removal of disaster-related debris and the demolition of various structures in and by the Borough of Highlands and the County of Monmouth, New Jersey, appropriating $2,300,000, therefore authorizing the issuance of $2,300,000 bonds or notes of the borough to finance part of the cost thereof.
I'll offer.
Offered by Mayor Norman. Second by Ms. King. Ms. Ryan?
Yes.
Mr. Redmond?
Yes.
Mr. Francis? Ms. King? Yes. Mayor?
Yes.
Motion passes. On for second reading of public 2021-13-24. Ordinance amending and supplementing section 21-121 and 21-122 of the Code of the Borough of Highland, designate the building official or other designee of the governing body as a local official to administer and implement the provisions of Article Floodplain Prevention of Part 7, Floodplain Prevention, Chapter 21, and the revised general ordinances of the Borough of Highland. This was published in the August 30th edition of the Two-Year Times.
Question from the table? Okay, Tim, you want to give a brief synopsis on 1324? Zoning, I'm sorry, ordinance designating flood officers.
Just have to change the name.
I can jump in.
Hey, jump in.
This is, deals with Dale, not Dale, be Dale. It's catching your, it catches your
Nobody else wants to
ordinances up with Dale's title. So, that's all it does.
No different dollar amounts of change?
No.
Just clarification. Anybody have a question on 1324? Flood officers?
On final reading and adoption of ordinance 0-13-24, ordinance amending and supplementing section 21-121 and section 21-122 of the Code of the Borough of Highland, designating the building official or other designee of the governing body as a local official to administer and implement the provisions of the flood damage prevention of Part 7, flood damage prevention of Chapter 21 of the revised general ordinances of the Borough of Highland.
I'll offer it.
By Aaron Dahl. Second by Ms. Kane. Ms. Ryan?
Yes.
Mr. Russell?
Yes.
Mr. Francis?
Yes.
Ms. Kane? Yes. Mayor Hill? Next item is review of planning board recommendations for ordinance 0-13.
Ms. Ryan has a question.
I have a question. Okay, before we go,
Is this just on the agenda? I think I'm going to answer the question.
yes, yes.
7 and 8 is repeated up there.
Okay, so it's going to be number 7, that
Yes.
we're discussing,
Right.
and moving the 2 second sentences down. I just want to make sure I know where it comes.
This is what I would recommend. Skip cross off number 7.
Fourth of 7, thank you. That's it, okay?
No, it's just a ministerial.
All right. Thank you.
So there's 3 parts to number 8. Just like we did with the other zoning ordinances, you need to review the planning board recommendation. So I'm going to read a resolution which you have in your packet, which does not approve the ordinance. All it does is outline the procedural history and acknowledge that there's no substantive recommendations from the planning board. So you don't need to make any changes to it. You then go ahead with the public hearing and final adopt.
Thank you.
So you all have the planning board recommendation. The ordinance contains those recommendations, so I'm not going to read the recommendations separately. Resolution acknowledging recommendations of the planning board concerning O-13-25. Whereas on July 3rd, 2013, the borough introduced ordinance 13-16, which among other things amended height and density restrictions in the M8 zone. And whereas that ordinance was scheduled for a public hearing on August 21st, 2013. Whereas pursuant to New Jersey Statute 48:55D-64, the ordinance was referred to the planning board for review and recommendation. Whereas the planning board requested an extension of time from the restrictions of New Jersey Statute 48:59D-26 to consider the ordinance, which the governing body by resolution adopted on July 17, 2013 granted that request. And whereas by resolution adopted on August 8, 2013, the planning board reported to the governing body concerning O-13-16. Whereas at its meeting on August 21st, 2013, the governing body accepted and reviewed the comments of the planning board and conducted a public hearing on O-13-16 and voted to postpone third and final reading of the ordinance until its meeting on September 4th, 2013. And whereas at its meeting on September 4th, 2013, the governing body introduced O-13-25, which was a substantial revision to O-13-16 and which incorporated the recommendations of the planning board. And whereas in accordance with the municipal land use law, because O-13-25 contains substantial revisions to O-13-16, the governing body referred O-13-25 to the planning board for recommendation and report. And whereas the planning board considered O-13-25 at its meeting on September 12, 2013, and adopted a resolution finding the following. The board finds that the proposed amendments are consistent with the master plan. The board requests that the governing body clarify and limit the maximum height of any structure within the zone to 120 feet, 10 stories, whether or not said structure includes any parking or accessory structure within the residential structure. Since proposed ordinance O-13-25 is basically the same as O-13-16, previously reviewed by this planning board on August 8, 2013, with the exception of the two issues presented above, this board recommends that the record for both hearings of this board be considered by the mayor and council when reviewing these recommendations. Lastly, the prior resolution adopted by this planning board for the review of ordinance O-13-16 is hereby adopted in full, and part of this resolution and is annexed hereto and made part hereof. This board hereby requests that the mayor and council consider both resolutions and reviewing the actions of this board on the proposed amendments. And whereas, at its meeting on September 18th, tonight, the governing body received and reviewed the planning board report concerning O-13-25, previously adopted on September 12, 2013. Now therefore be it resolved by the governing body of the Borough of Highland as follows. 1. The governing body acknowledges receipt and review of the report and recommendation of the planning board concerning O-13-16 and O-13-25. 2. The governing body has and shall consider the board's review of O-13-16 and O-13-25 as comprising the record for final consideration of O-13-25. 3. The governing body's findings contained in the preparatory phrases of O-13-25 clarify that the intent and application of the ordinance is to prohibit any structure in excess of 120 feet, including residential structures above parking structures. In other words, the ordinance as written would prohibit construction of a structure exceeding 120 feet above grade, regardless of whether the residential structure is above a parking structure. Thus, no revision to O-13-25 is necessary, and for the aforementioned reasons, the governing body finds that no revisions of O-13-25 are necessary, and the governing body may proceed to consider the ordinance for final reading and consideration as introduced and adopted at first reading.
You just started the floor. And we'll move the public hearing.
Now you can move that.
Oh, I apologize. Okay. I'll offer it as Bruce said.
Offered by Mayor Knoll.
I have a slight question.
Sure.
The planning board specifically said that it doesn't think O-13-16 and O-13-25 are significantly different. Does that change in your resolution?
No, they said they're basically the same, but I think there was a substantial revision because remember 16?
I understand.
Right.
Yeah, but there's a difference in wording. Does that matter to you?
No, it doesn't matter.
Very good, thank you.
We are voting on a resolution, not an ordinance.
Correct. This does not approve anything.
What does the resolution do?
The resolution accepts the planning board report and allows you to proceed to the public hearing and consideration.
Okay, so if it's supposed to be enable us to proceed to the
Public hearing and then the final.
Okay.
Okay, I have a motion by Mayor Knoll, I need a second. Second by Ms. Kane. Ms. Ryan?
Yes.
Mr. Redmond?
Yes.
Mr. Francie?
Yes.
Ms. Kane?
Yes.
Mayor Knoll.
Yes.
On for second reading and public hearing. Is ordinance 0-13-25, an ordinance amending and supplementing chapter 21 of the revised general code of the Borough of Highlands entitled zoning, to modify the requirements of the MH mobile home rental district, and to further allow high-rise multifamily developments in the MH zone as a conditional use, and to establish regulations pertaining thereto. This was published in the September 7th edition of the Asbury Park Press. May now open this for public hearing.
We'll start like we did the last time, folks. We'll go from here and work our way over. And I'll ask them to stay that 3 minutes. Please, if you can, if you want to do the final touch, we have just a chance to weigh in. And the request to ask one question at a time, please, as we go through the process, okay? Ms. Dillon, you want to start us off? We do need name and address, right, Bruce?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Please, name and address, as we go.
32 Paradise Park. I want to know, does this ordinance change the protective clause that was in the ordinance prior, before this, where it required that before the final development plan was approved, that there be a
Back up
plan
the
of
state.
relocation?
Or we're back into the state one?
No, this does not change the relocation section that's already in the zoning code. That is not obligated to anything.
This changes-
That still applies.
Change it from 6-story to 120 feet.
Right, I understand.
The
but
relocation, you
without-
have a separate relocation section? You're right, it does not change that. Yes.
So my main comment or question,
We got to talk.
excuse me?
We have to say, we limit it to one, to go through the whole.
Well, that's a question of clarification.
Okay, got it.
That wasn't my, but
No
my.
problem.
Sorry.
And I thought,
Excuse me?
I thought your time.
Okay. My concern is that there's been very little consideration paid to the people who live in that community in any of these ordinances or any of these discussions. There seems to be no plan of where these people are gonna go, or if there's gonna be housing to replace this housing.
There was no plan with the 6 story was provided.
Well, that's fine, so you did that once, do you wanna continue to do that?
That's not done in really any development plan I know, especially when we just change the use. Okay. Carla, would you like to want to wait? Name that, please, if not, that's okay. Just move on.
I want to say something, but I don't.
You don't have to counter, you can make a statement or name and address or bid. It's on the ordinance.
I'm just wondering, are we on that?
You guys talk about that outside, okay? Not getting into he said, she said. Not gonna, we'll be respectful to other please give it back.
It's still my address until the tenants.
All right, guys, this is another conversation we all want to be involved in. Start right there.
Can everybody please speak up?
They're gonna not hear on the other side, guys, I'm sorry.
Arthur Bolzer, 294 Bayside. We've had so much trouble on Bayside Drive, sand coming down. I think it's bizarre to be considering a major project here on the top of the hill. It just doesn't make any sense at all. If that property ends up sold, then let them get a change, variance, let it go through the whole process. This is crazy to permit a major structure. The hill is just too damn fragile, period. I think it's ridiculous.
Thank you, sir.
I would agree with that. I think it's completely reckless to suggest putting in an ordinance that triples what was first being brought up.
Triple to the
Yeah, going up to a density of 32.
Density wise.
Yes, density.
Same as each one.
Yes, we're overloading slope. It's very fragile. The Menard study points out the geological sensitivity of the area. All you have to do is walk down Bayside Drive. It is disintegrating. I think it's a completely reckless thing to do. And now to say that these buildings would be consistent with what's already up there, East Point, that's not the truth. There are homes up there, single-family homes, some townhouses. No one really is against development of that area, but it really has to be taken with some sensitivity to the very fragile nature of the area. And on another note, I also have been advised that regarding number 12 in the ordinance, under 12, the setbacks, the second paragraph regarding the bulk requirement of the conditional review, that the statute 40:55D-970.6, 970 does not exist, that the highest it goes is 134, so we may not determine on that. Get that out.
It may be in this period.
Well, this is going back before many times, and so I really encourage all of you to
prior to this planning, this is
There's nothing to do.
It's not a project before. So we wouldn't have done this a lot.
well, you're changing the zoning to permit this.
From 6 to 10 stories.
And zero.
Oh, okay.
Well, this is a conditional use, so it wouldn't have to.
Sorry?
This is a conditional use, not actual permitted use, so it would have to.
Could it be a site plan, in other words, for some land development? And then you go through that?
Well, I think it's important to consider.
I think that's part of the site plan. It has to be.
Any kind of things.
Every planning board meeting is public. Currently, they're right now down at the library. Okay, and it's, planning board is second Thursday, zoning is first. Sir?
My name is Greg, 290 Bayside Drive. Reading through this, I believe there's one thing that's majorly missing. And that right now, everybody's talking about right now what to do with the ordinance. But nobody's talking about if the ordinance goes through, the guarantee that the hills, the rights, and all these different properties, changes made and securities, that the owner of the property maintains these as per the original site plan. There's nothing in the ordinance to specify that. I think it's very important because if it's going to go through, and it seems you people want it to go through, and if you have all engineering studies and all this now, who 5 years now is going to be the godfather of this to protect it?
Well, anything before it's built, they have to go to the planning board.
I'm not talking about as it's built, but in the ordinance to put on the deeds of the property and things of this nature, that they maintain, there's a mothership of the property as per the designs. In other words, 5 years from now, you have a landscaper come in and they want to put new shrubs in. He goes and regrades this, not done properly, and changes the design. There's no mothership in this to prevent that from happening.
I don't think I understand the question.
The question is, right now, if this goes through as approved.
Somebody buys it tomorrow, builds something. and
Right,
5
they
years
design
ago,
it in a whole deal. 5 years from now,
Get planning board approval and now it's down the road.
but who's gonna do the mothership to ensure that it's in the deed or something of this nature along the way, to ensure that any design mods or anything of this nature are as per the original designs, to ensure no problem with this deed slope. I see nothing in here to prevent that from happening.
I'm not sure what you're really looking for, but.
Looking for something of a guarantee in the
No, I
ordinance.
understand, but what I think you're looking for isn't something that goes in the zoning.
Well, why can't this be part of the zoning ordinance?
Typically, it's part of the site plan on the development, of what you.
Who's going to,
long term?
who's going to enforce it?
Our plan,
The code of, the planning board.
and planning board sets it out, so we want to.
Can be put in here somewhere along the way that any modifications.
That would have to be in the site plan.
It's inherent in zoning law, that's.
I'm talking something simple. And that's how these problems start. By the changing of a bush, changing a grade, changing the loss of grass because the kids are playing there, and all of a sudden now,
Or removals.
right, something of this nature. And I see, at this stage, something should be addressed to protect us. This is my comment.
Okay.
All right? And number two comment, in reference to borough engineer in reviewing some of these plans. I think it should also be put in there that a hydraulic engineer and a specialty engineer be specified in the ordinance for review.
Last time they had, private geotechnical engineers and everyone else involved in this, and that process, I'm gonna say 1 year and a half, that plan. So that was all, we did those meetings, again, were all public. And you're gonna see, okay.
Hi, I'm Scanlon, 22 Fifth Street. I'm not directly involved in that side of town at all, but I'm just wondering if there's a reason put forward for this, for okaying this ordinance would be for development and economic future of Highland, which I understand. Are there any numbers available for 6-story, the mid-rise versus the high-rise, and what effect that would have, any kind of projections on what
As
effect
far as
that would
like
have?
the rateable income,
Not so much even rateables, but total economic development. I guess rateables
it's
is
like a whole
clear,
dollar
it's 40.
project, in other words.
I mean, the ratables, I guess, are up 40%, right?
Well, there is a complete rateable that we got from our tax assessor. That when we do speak, we're all gonna, we're not always gonna say yes or no on that. So, I'm gonna read what he told us, and give you an idea of where I'm.
Okay, on the ratables,
Yeah,
so.
but I didn't go, I'm not gonna lie, I went from current to what would be, when Rebecca and I looked at this in June, we mirrored these things. That's
Okay,
a-
you back me up a little bit here. In June, was it a high rise or a mid-level rise?
June it was a high-rise
High-rise,
process.
okay.
Yeah, that hasn't changed since this go
Okay, okay.
And the dollar amount I asked Charlie Peck to provide to us, he did at the last council meeting.
Okay, so there's an X increase in
Here's what we're getting
ratables for a high
now.
rise.
Here's potentially, I told him, give me your conservative number and take 20%.
Okay, but there would be also an increase in ratables if it was a mid-rise.
No question.
Yeah, so
No question.
you don't have a feel for that number, like 40%?
All we have a feel for is it's been that zone for a year, nothing was done.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Buckley, you want to go and we'll go down that one? No? Mr. Mann? Sir?
Joel Goldschmidt, 1 Scenic Drive. A point of clarification. As I understand it, the proposal would be for a building 120 feet high, 12 stories.
10.
And that there'd be a parking garage either adjacent to or beneath this building, 45 feet high. Does that mean potentially we are looking at a building which would be 165?
No, that's why we came back to the council. That was one of the main things that we thought was a significant change to renotice and do this again. The total in this new ordinance is 120.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Mr. Van
Been on Bayside Drive for 15 years. Seen all the mudslides going down. Got pollution on Bayside Drive when spring used to run out. July, we had a slump block shape. Took all of our foundation. And it's not stable, that hill is not stable. And we, with the planning board hearing last time, took a year and a half, and they never went into the slump block really heavy. And the problem here is, this last meeting, we talked about the slump block. Now, the planning board approved this in one meeting without even discussing the slump block. Why? Because they were told to push it through. And that's what's being done here. This is spot zoning, and it's going fast. And if you read the reports, Carol Peterson, when she was on the last planning board, resigned now, she did a study, the financial part of it, which the doctor who was pushing the thing to build a high-rise, and his profit, what it would be for the town, what we would get. She come up and said we were lucky we got $500. And she used all the figures that came from that side. And I don't know where our tax assessor is coming up with this. So she's a mathematician. She works over in New York. She knows what she's talking about. But it ain't going to do nothing for the town. I lived in a town when we built Twin Lakes, built Windmore. They were all going to save the town. We're still paying the highest taxes around. And they're not helping. Bayside Drive is a real mess. And I've seen all the mudslides. And these people here, we have 4 residents on Bayside Drive on the upper part. They cannot come down into the island. They have to go all the way around the Atlantic Island and come back into the island. And that's a long ride. And that hill is collapsing. And that road is going down. And they may be landlocked. And some of the people from Atlantic Island may be landlocked where the other side of the road is going. Those people aren't going to get out. You better take that into consideration. And then not pass this tonight. If anybody wants to do anything up there, let us go to the Court of Adjustment.
They need to raise your voice.
Carol Karakowski, Poolsville. 62 Bayside Drive. I'd like to reiterate everyone's concern about the slump
appropriate property for a high rise. I would like council to keep in mind taxpayers who are in real danger. If we're talking about, I don't even know if it's the 10 stories up that bother me as much as the possibility of the 3 stories down to a parking garage that they're talking about. You know, they're not going to be a high rise on top of the hill very long because they'll be down at the shoreline, the way that hill is. And I'd also like to say that it just seems that this whole process is being very rushed. Anyone my age or older in this town remembers trains going through. Well, the trains are gone, but things are getting
Morning, James, 27 Rock Street. I'd like to read the decision of the Superior Court of New Jersey Appellate Division because at the last meeting, Mr. Perula didn't quote spot zoning, and so I would like to read the Appellate Division's decision.
Is that for your case?
Yes, it is. This is dealing just with the spot zoning issue. The original court concluded that the ordinance in this case, this was the 0707 that was proposing high-rise, does not rezone the district, but it adds a conditional use to an already existing zone. Therefore, illegal spot zoning is not an issue in this case. And the appellate division ruled, we disagree with this narrow review of the elements of spot zoning and reverse, in order to give guidance in the event that litigation ensues over future enactment. Spot zoning is the use of the zoning power to benefit particular private interests rather than the collective interests of the community. It is essentially an invalid attempt to grant a variance, and the various rules are quoted. And I won't take up my time with those. As explained by the Supreme Court, spot zoning is the antithesis of planned zoning. The test is whether the particular provision of the zoning ordinance is made with the purpose or effect of furthering a comprehensive scheme, or whether it is designed merely to relieve a lot or lots from the burden of a general regulation. The law, so in the case of spot zoning, the owner of a particular parcel seeks to reap the benefit of a zoning decision by special ordinance or by variance, which treats his or her property more favorably than the comprehensive plan would allow, to the detriment of the larger community or the immediate neighbors. So, that is the court's decision on spot zoning. Thank you.
Lori Welch, 50 Valley Street. I have a lot of concerns about that this is being pushed as a financial, but we've never seen any of the financials. And I also think some of the numbers are being inflated. When you look at what we paid for 92 and 98 Bay, we paid $5,000 for that parcel. And this parcel is more than 50 times the size. So I think that your gap is being inflated because it looks like they're underpaying their taxes now. So if you want an immediate relief, you should have the tax assessor go up there because it looks like we should be getting about $280,000, not $70,000. So again, you keep pushing that this is a financial thing, but none of us have seen anything else that you've done. And everything that's publicly available refutes that.
Now, there was reference here, Bruce, to the last ordinance, at the last meeting, you said that this was going to be a new ordinance, and there's no reference to 16 or 316, is that correct? Yes, in the last meeting, when you didn't answer the questions, you said that we were going to table 13 and go to a new ordinance.
It was introduced at first reading as a new one.
Correct.
For the record.
Correct.
Yeah.
No public here, no public.
Right, because there's no public comment on the first reading.
Right. So, but in this resolution that you just passed before this, you made all kinds of references to 16, but in the past meeting, you said that that was totally discontinued, so I'm confused.
Okay, ordinance 16 was voted down.
Correct.
Ordinance 25 was a revision of ordinance 16.
Okay.
So it was reintroduced because there were substantial changes, just like any ordinance. If you make a substantial change to the ordinance as originally introduced, then it has to be reintroduced, and you start the process over.
My question then was, could you please, hopefully you have your book this time, you read the definition of spot zoning to the council and to the public?
Spot zoning has been defined as rezoning of a lot or parcel of land to benefit an owner for a use incompatible with surrounding uses and not for the purpose or effect of furthering the comprehensive zoning plan.
Okay, and then down a little bit farther, otherwise expressed as the use of the zoning power to benefit particular private interests rather than the collective interests of the community. Is that correct?
Where are you referring?
It's in the same paragraph, 34-8.2, where you stopped.
Yes, it does say that.
Okay, could you read that, please?
Well, you just read it.
Well, I'd like you to read it to the public, and you're the borough's attorney. I'd like you to read it to the mayor and council, not me.
Otherwise expressed, it is the use of the zoning power to benefit particular private interests rather than the collective interests of the community.
And then down a little farther, it says, put another way, where a zone change is designed to relieve the property owner from the burden of general regulation, it will be stricken as unacceptable spot.
I see you've got a copy of the Commons book, or at least some
No,
pages.
just one page.
Do you have the 2013 edition?
No, I don't.
Okay. Well, I'm going to read from you from page 812 that reads, in Gallo, the court held that rezoning residential property to allow greater density was not spot zoning just because it benefited a particular developer and was requested by that developer.
Okay, well, I think that you have your opinion, I have mine. I think everybody should choose what they do.
Exactly.
As we will at the table.
Thank you.
Sir? Sir, would you like? You good? Let's go back to you. Ma'am? Okay, sir.
David Minzer, what's Moon Scenic Drive Islands. I'm going to repeat some things that were already said because it's a concern to me. My concern is the density and the amount that you're placing on the property, other than a obvious monetary reason, and that's stupid. I can't understand why you're allowing, when we have such a concern over the possible the slides and the slumps. The East Point condominium building is 166 units in a 14-story building of approximately 11 acres. You're allowing 32 per acre, keeping it to 10 acres. You don't have to be a rocket science to see that that's going to be 3 high-rise buildings. You don't need to, someone asked previously for a plan. It's going to be over 320 units, but 320 units, limited to 10 stories.
Each one's 32 units per acre.
East Point's 100, do the math any way you want. East Point's 166
It's the same
units.
density, for the record.
So how do you come up with 320 in 10 acres?
32 units per acre.
Right.
Absolutely.
But East Point's
So we said all along we
160.
mirrored East Point.
I'm not-
That doesn't mean
I'm
you
not
did it,
gonna
but that's
argue
what your
with
density
you.
is.
I'm telling you that you're going to allow 320 units. Physically put them on 10 acres is going to take almost 2.5 buildings. Period. With the concern of the slum And it's here, you can read it, it's in your ordinance from 1974. It's a concern of our own planning board recommends that you address the steep slope and slump block issues by considering a sliding setback provision based on the height to protect the ridge line and steep slope. That's our own planning board. Why are you placing such an enormity on that mountain?
You know, right now they could build 6-story and do the same thing.
But why? Why
That was last year.
My last question is for our attorney, maybe some free legal advice. When this, hopefully, God forbid, disaster doesn't happen, but if there is a problem, who do we come to? You feel supposed to be protecting the people of Highlands. Who do we sue? A developer that runs because he's now bankrupt because the thing slid? How about the people down below? How about the structure of the East Point building? What's our recourse?
It depends on the circumstances.
It depends what?
On the circumstances.
There's a slide. There's a slide.
Well, the borough was
what people
in the
down
hilltop at Highlands case.
What?
The borough was brought into the hilltop at Highlands case.
So why would you want to do that?
And
Which good thing?
we settled it for nuisance value because we had no liability.
So we're basically stuck, is what you're saying, if something happens.
You're not stuck. You're stuck.
Wait a minute, this is a disaster, what happens? Because of this
What if
construction,
your building
a
fell?
lot of us feels it's too
What if
stressful.
East Point falls?
What?
What if your
I
building?
don't think it'll fall, I believe you could have foundation problems. I hope it wouldn't fall, God
Should we-
forbid.
should we
But
go
you might
back?
have cracks, and valleys could go to nothing, you know, and then there are slides to be considered for the people who live below both the trailer park and these. What's your answer? Why such density? Why such
We mirrored
excavation?
East Point.
What?
We mirrored your building.
Why?
Why?
Because we wanted to increase it so we get more money.
There you go. All right. And possibly the risk of safety.
Same thing as a 6-story at the bottom. Ma'am, did you want to speak? Ma'am, did you want to speak? No?
My name is Jennifer Grace, I also live at One Scenic Point, and I want to reiterate support for the residents of this work. I do also agree with the primary concern of the slum walk. We've held new construction, we know we all need money, this town was very devastated by 2 hurricanes, I think we should find another way to do it.
Thank you. Come back around the back. Sir? Billy? Rick, you want to?
No.
Okay. Ma'am? Name and address, please. He's standing, not going to hear you.
Same thing as most people said, it's been at the bottom of the hill, watching this problem. That doesn't come from, what? We see no financial, we see no alternative plans. I'd like to get more information from the council before this is shuffled.
Okay, thank you.
Doug Clark, New York. For your planning board, you stated there would be a 30% tax increase if this ordinance was not.
No, I said we had a 30 to 40% loss of homes, which would increase to 30% tax.
Excuse me, I was there.
Sure, me too. I said
You
it.
stated point blank, there, and with, actually, you got angry, there would be a 30% increase in tax if this ordinance was not.
Not true. We said there was I never did anything about that. There was a 30 to 40% loss of rateables downtown.
No, Mayor, but exactly what you said, what this man claims.
Okay.
Exactly what you said.
She was there.
Because of the loss.
All right, everybody. So, all right, the question I'm asking, if it is going to, if this is going to protect us at 30%.
What was that? What was that?
If this ordinance, what you is going to protect us from a 30% tax increase, please explain how.
Sure. We're going to have about a 30 to 40% loss of housing downtown. We just talked about it now, knocking down houses. You're going to lose your rateable money on the improvement. Where are you making it up? There's your answer. That's not.
With that being said, is there a buyer or a company purchasing that property?
I don't know.
So it is, there's no point in the ordinance, let it go through the proper.
But why did we do it last year?
Is that?
Why did we do it last year?
It's a good question.
Try to be aggressive and get things going in the town, and then that was after Irene and now Sandy. That's why we did the tax abatement also.
Tax rate is the law.
Okay, your opinion.
Not my opinion, it's not.
Okay, who's next? Ma'am? Rob, do you want to go or no? Okay. We'll go to the next out here, ma'am. Okay, just name and address and we'll go down that aisle. Can't hear you, sorry.
What we have forgotten is these corners constructed, ledge behind the Maharashtra lot. Ocean Avenue had been permanently closed. According to the Atlantic Islands Borough website, it cost the taxpayers close to $40 million back in 1980 to create a new access road. Basically, what you're asking for is permission to create the same access again. Can you give us a guarantee that East Point residents that we will have no structural damage due to this construction before or after?
I think that'll be
During or
part,
after the construction? Can you give us a guarantee?
no, I think that'll be part of the site plan.
If you don't have a site plan, why are you being so specific about the height of the density?
Same reason last year, we was exactly
Why
specific.
can't you have a range? Why are you being specific, changing it from 6 floors to 10?
We wanted to limit it. We already have 6 up there now. Because you see a trailer park, it's not just approved
So
for the
why
trailer
change
park.
it to 10 and make it worse?
Worse for
We're very
what?
concerned about.
It's
this.
already 6.
We're very also concerned about the underground parking that.
Okay.
that proposed.
Which it allows now too, for the record.
Doesn't matter what it allows.
Okay.
When you go that deep into the pit, it's going to rock the pit. The vibrations from that are going to spread out. Cracks all around this construction site. Eventually, they will come to a building.
Okay.
What guarantee can you give us that this is not going to happen? You cannot give us a guarantee.
That's correct. Just like we couldn't
So
last
what
year at
I
6
would like
dollars.
to take it is, given the fact that historical events have shown that the ledge behind this point collapsed because of the construction of these points, that the non-mature developers are not allowed to build because of the slumping issue, and an accident of this nature has not occurred since East Point because the controls that have been put into place because of the master plan that you want to add in the master plan. Other thing I want to bring up, one more thing. You have given us no numbers about the neighborhoods. You keep comparing it to East Point, and that's like comparing apples to oranges.
Okay.
Okay? Because somebody living in this high rise is not looking at an ocean. What they're looking at is a gas station, quick check, the Route 26 traffic. They're going to listen to this traffic day and night and breathe in the pollution from this traffic. Since when did this become luxury living? I don't know. And the fact that when people go to buy condos, they are going to look from Atlantic Island all the way to Long Beach. Compare all the condos. I don't know who will put up any kind of money to live in a place like this.
Who would put up to live there now?
Who would put their life savings into a condo? They live like this. When you get a gas station every day, one day that's going to blow up in their face. Or look at quick check and look at all the traffic. Would they rather go buy somewhere else? Which is exactly what's going to end up happening. Which is why the lawyer 2 meetings ago said, we are going to leave the option open.
Time's up, so please just finish your thought.
Low income housing. He's going to leave that option open. Because that's where this is going to end up.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Dan, you didn't want to go back there? No?
Go Taylor, 1 Single Drive. If I could repeat a lot of the things that you said.
Sure.
I want to ask a couple of questions about the building timelines. It's my understanding that you have to put something as big as East Point, or these 3 condominiums that are proposed, on it's a pretty solid foundation. So how do you, what do you have to do to this property to give these buildings a really solid foundation? There's mud.
Bill, you remember the last one with them basically with the
Mayor wasn't really involved with that application, but I mean, obviously you have to, yeah, you have to account for the type of soils you're building in. I mean, I believe those footings went down pretty far, but I don't have no numbers or anything right now.
I think if you're driving pilings, I mean, I see them driving pilings when they're putting some of these buildings on shore. When they drive those pilings quite far, that's disturbing that building.
There's definitely footings at some point when they go to a site plan, all that's sorted out. What's that?
too late. It would be too late.
Mr. Frankie said the previous application, there was no blasting, no pile driving, it was all being excavated. He said the previous application, which was 100 acres, there was no pile driving, no excavating. It was, I'm sorry, there was no blasting, it was all excavating.
That was in the ordinance, that was the application.
Well, that's kind of what we're talking about. The last ordinance didn't limit or 500 feet high. The last ordinance gave a height of 60 feet high.
Is that going to be this one?
No, this is 120 feet.
What the details that come out in the site plan, part of the applicant's plans, you can't put them into the ordinance.
I'm just saying that buildings of that size, I think, require a really solid foundation.
There's no question.
We have it.
No question. And that's all sorted out with engineering and site plan. Who's next? Ma'am, did you want to go? Sir? No. Still, you can't move and go again, sorry. Go ahead, sir.
John Torpy, 360 West Shore Drive. The building's built, all these people moved into town. Where do they shop again? Downtown where it's flooded? Where do these people go? They want to come here and live in this town? What's in this town that's going to attract all these people? I don't understand why the council even considers something like this. That's so unsafe. I live right behind East Point. I don't have sun in the wintertime. It's blocked. Now we're going to put 3 more in there? It's ludicrous. Just reconsider, please. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ma'am? Ma'am, did you want to go or no? No? Sir? Go back around here. Yeah. Yeah, you guys. Do you want to go, sir? Do you want to go or no? Okay.
John Post, 160 Drive. If I misunderstood, I'm sitting here, maybe I can't hear it. Did you say the council was not concerned about density, you just want to get rid of them, something like that?
We didn't say that. So we matched East Point.
That's what I,
No, we matched East
there's
Point.
no concern about density.
The density is East Point. 32 units per acre. And height is less.
So if you're talking about 32 more units.
No, 32 units an acre is what you have. So you have 10 buildable acres. You can do 320 units.
So you're not concerned about anything on the slides or anything like
That has nothing to do with this ordinance. The ordinance, that would be then done at the site plan if there was one presented to the plan. And the last one we said was over a year, geotechnical engineering, everything. Ma'am? Just please stand and give your name and address.
Connie Stover, 1 Scenic Drive, 404. I don't want to repeat too much of what's been said, but one thing that hasn't been said is people, I don't know how many people here are aware of the history. I think many people on the council were not really there a few years ago when the previous site plan was being discussed. That resulted in the lawsuit with Mrs. Jennings, and we know what the outcome of that was. You asked why the applicant or the owner has not built a 6-story proposal at this point. I would suggest that possibly it's not as ludicrous, it's not as beneficial, it's not as maximal benefit to him as it would be 10 stories. I think that may be the reason. I think that he's kind of laid low for the last couple of years until a fortuitous situation for him, like Sandy came along and gives the opportunity for him to come back with another proposal for probably another 3 buildings. To say that there's no site plan is really, it seems to me, facetious when we've had the owner of that building in this room publicly state that he has met with members of the council to discuss the plans and it's a done deal. I think that's absolutely awful, and I don't know how you can proceed.
Hank Stuber, 1 Scenic Drive. I sent in an objection letter, and so did a fellow resident of East Point. You responded to my fellow resident with a nice paragraph in which you referred to as being Sandy being an unprecedented
unprecedented event in terms of the flooding that it caused. You remember that, the paragraph?
I responded to a lot of emails, but.
Well,
Sure, I did.
I thought this was a canned thing, but I didn't get a canned response on mine, so my fellow resident did.
No, I don't have like a
You don't have a canned
template, no.
Well, it was a nice paragraph to send back. And you look at East Point, and you're saying it's 32 units per acre. You're going back looking at ancient history. Sandy, unprecedented means that something you didn't anticipate. So the things are changing, the climate is changing, storms are changing, right?
I would agree with you on certain
Okay,
levels.
flooding. What about slumping? What about unprecedented event that's now going to impact the hill that East Point is on? And if you put something else on it, what about unprecedented events like that? Why are you talking about an unprecedented event that just affects flooding? And we're concerned about the safety of the hill. Are you waiting for another unprecedented event that affects us? Think about it. Imagine it. Imagine you're living there.
Second? No? Sir, do you want to go? No? Good. Sir, did you want to go? Good. Go right down the line here.
John Taylor, 1 Scenic Drive, and also 284 Bayside.
Okay.
Which means that when the slump occurs, I'm either going to be,
Coming
depending
around.
on where I am that day, I'm going to be either on top of the pile or buried underneath it. I don't know. But just one small point I want to bring to the council's attention. Recently we had some problems with some sand and dirt going down the slope into my neighbor Tarby's backyard. So I hired, at my own expense, a civil engineering firm to come up from Tom's River to take a look at it. So that if there was a problem with my property, I certainly wanted to take care of it. So his preliminary report so far says that while there is some erosion down by us, he says your real problem is coming from the other side of Bayside Drive. There's water and sand and silt down that hill, in his opinion, underneath the road, which is causing a sinkhole and the road caving in. But he felt it required further study to look more, at the hill. So it's just my opinion that it would behoove the council that probably should take a better look at that hill. Because if your concern is really the lives of the people in the town rather than the coffers of the town, that should be looked at closely.
Did you grab that electronically, John?
No, I don't have it electronically.
Could you get it, because we could send it to our planning board also?
I can see it.
Thank you.
My name is 29 Shrewsbury. I spent 2 terms on our zoning board. And I have to say that I am so disappointed in our planning board that I honestly think that you should rethink who's on the planning board. I think the current ordinance shows a real lack of responsibility and rational thinking on behalf of all the people in this room. How many times does an issue bring 100 people to a town council meeting? This has been a touch point issue multiple times. We're not learning from our mistakes. East Point probably should have been built. Atlantic Highlands didn't allow West Point to be built, I think because of the ocean, the slump of the hill after that fact. We've had 2 significant slumps since in the last 18 months. I think Lisa, who lives up in Hillside, they had an engineering firm come and look, and that engineering firm, which I think is Mazer, could not guarantee the safety of the hill. So how is that engineer who did the same engineering plan in connection with this ordinance able to tell one group of people that the hill is safe and tell another group of people whose homes are at risk of going off the cliff into Kim's house that the hill, they can't guarantee that the hill is stable. So I really think that this is a really irresponsible ordinance. I know that we need tax dollars, but even the lives of people and the willingness of people to move to Highlands when buildings start falling off the hill is going to be 0. So what's going to happen to tax refunds then? And also I think the current ordinance is completely inconsistent with the goal of the master plan to protect the ridge line. And I don't want to live in Fort Lee, New Jersey. So Why are we even contemplating something that's going to have such a detrimental impact, the visual aspect of our town, to people who are coming in from the water? And I have not heard one person, either the planning board or this council, discuss how this ordinance, or the ordinance that was passed a year ago, is consistent with the principle of the master plan to protect the ridge line. So I haven't heard that addressed. Thanks.
Melissa McAleer, 52 Barbary. I heard the mayor today say that basically this ordinance is something that we want. And I guess I would like to understand exactly what do you define as we? Because we, the town, have voiced a completely different opinion. We have suggested numerous times different issues that should be taken into consideration. The way that the new ordinance was rewritten did not take any of those considerations, as actually pointed out by the attorney for the planning board, which said it was substantially similar. So I would like the mayor or anybody else in the council to please tell us, who do you define as we in saying this is what we want? Thank you.
I'll tell you. The hundreds of people that I've met going door to door the last 2 weeks. The comment was, how could anyone not want it? That was the most common comment.
80% said they don't want it, so let's do a referendum.
And I disagree with you about the ordinance.
I'm sorry, you disagree with me
I
about
disagree with
what?
you about the ordinance.
Which
I
part do
think
you
it was
disagree?
substantially different, and that's why we did it.
Okay, so I'm sorry, which attorney's judgment is actually the more precedent? Is it Mr. Padula or is it the attorney for the planning board? Considering the planning board is the one that made the decision and the advice based on the assumption that it's substantially similar. So is it then invalidated?
Substantially similar.
Oh, I'm
No,
sorry.
they did not. No, let's keep quiet. If you want to ask a question, I'll answer it. It said it's basically the same. My opinion. No, listen. You tell me, Melissa, what are the differences between the first and second resolution ordinance?
I'm not the town attorney. Please
I'm telling you that there's substantial differences because we addressed setbacks, there were slope requirements, that was all new. If we just amended that at the first hearing on ordinance 16 and adopted it, that would have been immediately overturned as a substantial revision without republication. There were substantial changes that required reintroduction and republication. Who's the planning board attorney? Mr. Serpico? He's not here. If he were here, maybe he would have said go ahead. I said it's a substantial change and it had to be reintroduced. So my opinion takes precedent.
Okay, then is the decision made by the planning board made erroneously because they were working under the wrong assumption, thinking that it's pretty much the same?
No.
I'm sorry. Please, that's not.
Let me ask you this. How could it be the same if the first time they said it was not consistent with the master plan and the second time they said it was?
They didn't. I beg to differ with you.
Yes.
I'm talking to Ms. McAleer. We'll get to you.
I'll be first to answer.
Okay. Go ahead. What? No, this isn't controversial. We don't contribute our time.
No, let's go in order. Yeah, you can go. You're up next.
John McAleer, 52 Barbary. I'm going to echo the comments that have been already made about safety issues. We haven't seen financials. I'm not going to go into great detail about that. My greatest concern, though, is the process. I don't have the legal training or education to argue points of law with Mr. Padula, and I'm not going to try and do that. But at best, the kindest word I could use for this entire process has been unethical. Since the night of July 3rd, when an emergency council meeting was held, I've asked multiple times whether or not, and we heard the question asked again tonight, we got the same answer, we have no knowledge of the plan. And yet, people intimately involved in that development have told us to our faces, of course they're aware of it. It's a done deal. And everything we're hearing from our mayor is it's a done deal. There's a refusal.
We're voting on it tonight.
I understand that, but
So
humor me for 10 seconds. It's my 3 minutes.
Because it could be voted down 5 to nothing like
Well,
the last
as we also heard from Mr. Padula last week, there are concerns about litigation involving this and involving the process.
Litigations and everything. No question.
That's
There's
true.
always concern.
But knowing there's this much public opposition, how responsible would it be of the town to go ahead? All the people who supposedly support this aren't here.
Right,
They
weren't
haven't
gonna do
voiced their
nothing about it. I
opinions,
understand.
but everyone here has voiced opinions. They're actually afraid for their properties, for their lives, for their futures. We all live here. The only people I heard speak up in support of this ordinance at the last fairly rowdy council meeting were ones who could directly financially benefit from selling a whole lot of units. There were maybe 2 out of 100 and some people. I can tell you with certainty that there will be litigation on this. I have been asked not to share the person's name tonight, but I will read you the quote. Anyone who knows that I am absolutely, completely, 100% committed to seeing this approach be examined by a court process, and if it take me alone, doing it with pen and paper and one simple $200 filing fee, then I will. So you've had a promise that there will be litigation.
Okay.
How far it will go, how expensive it will become, I don't know. I don't have the financial or emotional wherewithal to fight you, but what I most resent is the attitude that we have gotten since July, the night of July 3rd, is if you don't like it, sue us. And I don't think that's very responsible. And if the town is sued, I personally don't want to pay the legal bills out of my tax dollars, especially with the council knowing how much opposition there was to this. I've said my piece. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Peter Mull, 11 Marine Place. I take issue with Mr. Padula's characterization that the planning board found this consistent. The planning board adopted an ordinance and they included the previous ordinance which found the density and the height of these structures completely inconsistent with the master plan. That has not changed at all. And I think that that puts a special burden on the members of this council to say why they would go against the recommendations of the planning board with regard to that. With the exception of Mr. Nolan, I have no idea what the rest of the council is thinking. They're so mute. They don't have any opinion. They don't give any people in the audience any kind of feeling about what they feel about this thing. There's a responsibility for them to go on record and say why this particular land is particularly well suited for this use. Why is a high rise? Why is that density? This is the standard proof that you go to the zoning board for to get a minor use change. Why is this particularly well suited for that use? It isn't. And then with regard to the spot zoning issue, we've already heard that it's a benefit to one at the that doesn't benefit the community. The council has to enumerate these benefits. You can't just say it's a benefit, and you can't say that it's just the cost, because any development up there would generate, theoretically, if we could get some figures, revenue for the town, one that is consistent with the master plan, for instance. And my feeling is that we're rewarding a landowner in town for bad behavior. This is a site that he has let go, and it's made it so that it isn't the thing it used to be. It isn't an asset to our town. So I would advise you to go to
Just to clarify, were you saying 1325 they said was not consistent, or the original?
the second ordinance, and I really think that this whole mishmash, I go along with this fellow's statement, you've made this torturous for people. We've come to these meetings, we don't know what we're seeing. I went to planning board meetings, we weren't allowed to talk about the first ordinance. So they already had made their determination about the consistency of density and height at the first planning board meeting.
1325, we had at least a 2-hour open meeting.
Let's talk about 16.
Okay. I'm saying that the first ordinance, the height and the density were completely inconsistent with the master plan, and that hasn't changed.
I don't want to argue with you because I think we would be on different sides of the fence on a lot of these things. 1325.8 says the board finds that the proposed amendments are consistent.
Amendments.
Okay.
The things that they amended to the ordinance were,
which was limiting the height to 120 feet.
It was clarifying the height to 120 feet.
I don't
It was
want
120
I respect
feet
your knowledge,
previously.
I don't want to argue.
Well,
Ma'am?
Dan Sheridan, on Cedar Drive.
I was at the planning board meeting last Thursday. I sat directly in front of Mr. Serpico, and one of the last statements he made was, these two ordinances are basically one and the same. And I put that in my notes.
I think he said that to send everything together, but I wasn't listening at that point for because it was over.
Yeah, Tony Morgiolo, East Point. I've already spoken, I don't have a whole lot more than they have. Same question. I understand it's a planning board, and in my mind, a planning board plans not just revenue, if that's what you're planning. They also plan safety. I don't know how you can determine that a thing that was zoned for mobile homes and all of a sudden be zoned for the highest building in the
Zone for
highest.
6-story units right now.
What was the study that you guys did that said, hey, this is cool, this is safe, let's put up a high rise? Is it because East Point by some magic is standing on the top of the hill? You now feel you can build something on the side of the hill just as high? And you're willing, as I said once before, to take the gamble, what everybody here is saying, what they said? And where is the other crowd of people that are for it? Is it just the planning board that might vote for it, not the people?
Kim Scorpion, 315 Shore Drive. I'm sorry if I jump around. I'm trying to condense all my questions because I have 3 minutes. Someone asked about what happens when there's a landslide. I'll tell you. The first time, a small slide, go to the council. Sorry, can't do anything private property. Second time, small slide, go to the council. I understand it's private property. Please, county, state, federal, help. Sorry, private property, nothing we can do. No contacts, nobody? Nope, nothing we can do. Third time was Irene, you saw what happened. So there's your answer. The mayor keeps saying that this will bring us readables. We have that phase in for development, so we're not going to see the full tax benefit for 5 years until they start leasing. At best, we're talking 7, 8 years. We're going to see all that money, and the council won't enforce the codes because they don't have the money to fight them in court. But they will push this through, and they will incur legal fees. Where's that money? Why can't we put it towards code enforcement and bring up the downtown and maybe increase the rateables downtown? I also have a question for the mayor and council. At the July 3rd meeting, you said you were brainstorming for ideas for rateables since January. Meeting behind closed doors on Fridays. Where was the rest of the town? Why didn't you ask us? Why didn't you leverage off of everybody else's knowledge and experience and thoughts for opinions on what can be done? Instead, you came up with one decision. Let's double the density. Let's forego the scenic overlook because it's obviously not here. I asked about it 2 weeks ago. Council had no idea. The current ordinance is for 14 units per acre. You can do 16 if you put in a scenic overlook for public access. That's gone. It's that portion is specific for 16 units per acre. If they go above it or below it, they don't have to do a public access easement. So now we lose our scenic overlook. The fact that you pushed this through with a special meeting called just days before July 3rd, and you keep pushing it through the planning board and you're pushing it through again, it smells. We've asked for delays. I personally asked you to hold off on voting, give it more time, give it more discussion. Nope, got to push it through. Something smells funky about it. I don't know what. Maybe some other people know. And as for the lawsuit, might not have the time or the money or the will to fight. But now, you've got social media. We're on social media. We're going to band together, and together we will have the strength, the energy, and the money to fight this. So,
Bob Ward, 270 Navasink Avenue. So my comments and question are more along the lines of the spot zoning, and probably the bigger issue is transparency, that we all like to have from our governing officials, and maybe addressing also the smell factor that Kim mentioned. We attended our second council meeting. We're kind of new to the area here, we were fortunate enough to, during the break at the last meeting, to meet with the owner of the property, Mr. Gilbert. And he gave us just the lowdown from his point of view, okay? And I'm going to quote some of the things he said to us. I already have the plans And the builder is ready to build. I have the builder. He actually even invited us over to his house so he could show us the plans. And I said, wow, did anybody else see these plans? He says, they all know about it, pointing to all of you. Okay, this is a direct quote to me and my wife Kelly, and she wrote you a letter concerning that as well. And we heard from a few of you about this, but we got a lot of non-denial denials from you, okay? And John mentioned before, saying that it's a done deal. And that's exactly what he said to us. It's a done deal. They all know about it. I said, why don't you just go through a variance process? We won't need the variance process. It's a done deal. My question to you is, can you confirm or deny Mr. Gilbert's assertions that you all know about this? And that, the plans were already set? He gave me the plans verbatim, okay? And it was already just like it's laid out in here. It just has a little bit of a smell to it, okay? To someone just new to the community, we had no vested interest in that. But we do now because it just smelled to us. It just didn't sound right. And we heard back from some of you. Some of you didn't bother responding at all to our email to you. But some of you did. We appreciate that time and effort, but it wasn't very satisfying. Okay. Just some comments back about Mr.
I have not seen the
Gilbert's
site plan
comments.
for the record.
I have not seen any site
Site
plan, I have not met the developer.
I met several, but nothing.
Oh, not
for
this,
any
not
place.
this. I did meet Dr. Gelman, as I have told you, and I do not care what he said. I have not seen anything, and I have no knowledge of the site plan.
Kelly Ward, 270-36. Just along that same line, in that same conversation, Mr. Gilbert said to us that he couldn't go through the right process because the builder wouldn't go through the right process. And so I'm just asking that you follow the process in the town plan and to do what we set apart to do in our planning process, not to excuse the variance, not to excuse any part of it. And if it comes through and the building, the mountain is safe, the hill is safe, no one's going to have benzene pouring into their yard, no one's going to have slumps, then fine. But let's make sure that that's all going to happen first before we even commit to a process.
Thank you.
Melissa Peterson, 17 Bay Street. I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt. There's no developer. There's no developer at all. Well, by the time you get a developer, by the time you actually build a building, by the time you actually sell the units, by the time the abatement expires, you're not talking 7 years, you're talking 10, 12 years. You want a short-term way to get rateables? Readjust shadow lawn and make him pay the taxes he's supposed to be paying. How about that? That's a really good idea, huh? Maybe. Because your logic to the fact that this is going to bring in rateables is not going to bring in rateables in the time and manner that we need after Sandy. So that's ridiculous argument. Then you're not even taking into consideration the slump block issues. You're not taking into consideration that the majority of the people don't want it, and if you're so positive, put it in a referendum and let's vote on it.
Carolyn Bouillon, 12 Main Street. As someone who's just recently lived in my home, I have a very good respect for architects and engineers. However, as 2 homes have fallen in the last 3 weeks, I don't want to have the council say, well, they'll do their site plans and there's going to do a survey and then there's going to engineer is going to sign off on it. And that's already happened twice, and we've got people that are now don't have houses. If that can happen to a bungalow and a 2-story house, what the hell is going to happen on that hill? If some engineer gets wrong, or if some architect signs off on something, and then you've got 320 possible units falling down the hill on top of the town. That needs to be addressed.
Second, third reading, and final vote. Okay.
On for final reading and adoption is ordinance
0-13-25, an ordinance amending and supplementing chapter 21 of the revised general code of the borough plans and zoning to modify the requirements of the MH mobile home resident district.
Guys, please hold your comments and let everybody in the room talk.
And to further allow high-rise multifamily developments in the MH zone as a conditional use and to establish regulations pertaining thereto.
You need a motion and a second.
Okay, I'll motion.
It's not a separate motion, you just need to move it and second.
Okay, now we vote. Do you want to second discussion at the beginning?
Motion to go to the
Yeah.
It's already, yeah, I'm gonna second it.
Now,
Okay. I think we should all, fairness to the public here tonight, don't just vote.
Speak up, please.
Don't just vote a one, everybody got quiet, I'm sorry. We don't want to vote a one-word answer, I think you should explain why you're voting, yea or nay, and try to weigh in on as much as you can of some of the reoccurring themes the public has brought up as these last, I guess it's been about 80 days of meetings. I'll start. This is an ordinance we've talked about now at least 5 meetings between planning and council. That's a 42-to-1 vote between all the elected officials and appointed officials. Tara and myself and other council people have met with dozens of developers or property owners since the beginning of the year to try to get things going in the town. Planning board lawyer and the borough attorney both say this is not spot zoning. Last year when we did the 6-story unit, we went from a trailer park to a 6-story unit. Everything that people have mentioned they're afraid of today is available to do right now up there, except the 120 feet. We started this again almost 90 days ago. We pushed back the buildings, taking into consideration, we moved it from the property line to the top of the ridge line. We know that we're going to have a 30 to 40% loss of rateables. Right now, we have 88,000 complete rateable from that whole property, and that has already been appealed and won to be at that number, so you can't just go up there and arbitrarily say, give me more money. Charlie Heck said if it was rentals up there that are in line with development down the road on 36, which I believe is called Thousand Oaks, the borough, now Charlie Heck for the record is our tax assessor. The borough would stand to go from 88,000 to 1.6 million. If it is sold units, the borough would stand to go from 88,000 to $3 million. The site plan will require geotechnical engineering, and will probably be at least a 1-year process. We've already started the conversation at the planning board to do the master plan over again with an idea to put a high-rise zone up there to back this ordinance up. In one of the references, we talked about hiring somebody to do something downtown to help us do rebuilding. Their quote, professional, that we're touting now as the end-all guy, is that the hopelessly outdated master plan has to be updated. Everybody wants more code enforcement and merry-go-rounds and boats and hotels. We need money to get that done. We are not elected for the record to send everything to referendum. We're here to vote for it. That's laid out. With that, I'm going to vote yes. Who's next?
Ms. Ryan?
I'm going to go. When I first started running for council, I mentioned one thing, that I would listen to the people, okay? And I have. Am I quiet? Yes. But I do listen. The first time we had a voting when we changed down in the trailer park downtown in San Diego Bay Marina, I was the one who voted no. If you all remember that when you came to the meetings. Okay? I do listen to everybody, and I'm very concerned about this. And I'm voting no for tonight.
Yes, this has been a long, arduous task for all of us, for everybody in the room. I'm not just speaking about the council and the mayor. When this first came to my attention, I was very excited by the possibility that the town could reap so much money, because we certainly need it. I was the one who asked the mayor to get the information and the numbers for the rate rolls, and I was very pleased to see what I still believe that we could bring in if we went ahead with this project. I have done my own research. I have read all about the sunk block. I have talked to so many people, I have answered people, I have been insulted, I have been patted on the back. It's all part of the job, but it's been a really, really tough job for the past couple of weeks. Listening to everybody who has really come here and been extremely emotional, has really made me think and consider everything that you have said. The concerns of each person for the safety issues has really struck a chord with me. And going over this, looking at you all, hearing what you have to say, my vote will be no.
Everybody kind of knows where I stand on this, but I need to have a counterpoint to Mayor Nolan on the economic benefits. At this point, our town budget is $6.7 million. All right, we have 2,600 dwelling units in town. This projected development is going to be 430 units. The various numbers that have talked about. It's a 25% increase in the number of dwelling units / people coming into town. Our budget will go up. DPW, town hall administration, police, they're all sensitive to the number of people they have to serve. At this point, my guesstimate is that that $6.7 million budget is going to go up 25%. Same number of dwelling units. They tend to be in lockstep. So that's a $1.6 million increase in our budget that's going to come off of the $3 million rateable. We may net $500,000. It's not chump change, but it is not $3 million either. I don't think we can get past the spot zoning. I don't think we can get past the steep slope issues. I don't think we can get past the fact that we aren't in control of that building once it gets built, and it's not filled with people. It's going to get filled other ways. And I think that's going to be problematic for us. It's going to change the town big time. I happen to like Highlands with its 5,000, 5,200 residents, sleepy town. I have no problem with that. We have to fix the downtown. We have to get more ratables, yes. But there isn't a good planner who's going to say a residential ratable brings in substantially more than the income to the town isn't going to be substantially more than its cost. That's a given. So at this point, chasing residential ratables is problematic to me. We need to chase commercial ratables. We need to chase the development along the shore. We need to get the shore projects that are talked about. We need to get them to happen. All right? Like I said, I voted no to introduce it. I'm going to vote no tonight.
Okay, let's put things together. I think a lot of people are new to the process, which is good, and I think we did follow the process. It may seem quick, but we followed the process. And I will always introduce or move or make a motion so that we can have this discussion. Because if you decide at the table, you all be agree, this is what you're looking at. That's how I see it. People would be disappointed if we didn't know how we felt. And that's why you have to move in executive things. This isn't an easy decision in our post-standing environment. And there's going to be many, many more rough decisions that come across this table. We need to redevelop, and we need to do it in a safe and effective manner. We're at a crossroad in our community where we're faced with many of our residents abandoning our homes. And at the end of the day, we need redevelopment to stay alive. We need it to bring in new sources of revenue. I've read much of the correspondence that I've gotten via email. I wish most of it wasn't just a computer-generated thing, but more of a personal letter. People that gave me more of a personal letter kind of got more of a personal letter back. Because I just felt like I wanted to make sure that was how everybody felt and not a stable stamp thing. I listened to Mr. Mullen say it seems like we're kind of weak. Well, quite frankly, I'm all over town. I go to the farmer's market, everybody walks away from me. I went to work today, I read That I Smell by Mr. Francis. It really ruined my day. So maybe that was part of the problem. But I hope with all of that, we can check, you know, I want people to know they can come and talk to me. It doesn't have to be a computer-generated email. It doesn't have to be a standoffish or walk away or don't look at me. I'm very approachable, and quite frankly, Mr. France told me about 3 weeks ago I was going to vote no, and probably could have reiterated that to quite a few people. So with that, I am voting no, and I just hope that, you know, this, you know, kind of feels a little bit of, I guess, relationship within our community. It doesn't have to be this group and that group and this group and that group. We're all one community, and we need to be one community to get through Sandy.
We went through the process, folks, legally, it got voted down 4-1. It was never a done deal, as you said. And here we are. We went through the right process, and thank you for everybody. Hopefully, everyone keeps coming back to the meetings, not like the other issues that have gone by the wayside. I don't see the bridge people anymore. I don't see a lot of those folks either. So hopefully, everybody keeps coming to the meetings and we have these hot topics. Okay. Borough engineer status report?
Sure, man. This will be short and sweet, so to speak. The Snug Harbor dredging. Basically, the county did some repairs to the damage they caused during the dredging process. We met with them last Monday. We're not happy with the repairs. We rejected what they did. They are coming back to redo those repairs and actually stabilize them even further. They still have to replace a pipe that they damaged at the Recreation Place intersection. So they have to dig that back to the inlet, replace it all the way through, replace the duckbill that was on the end of it. So we're working with them to get a schedule to complete those the repairs to the repairs, so to speak.
Okay.
I'm happy to finally report Bayside Drive is underway. They started actually today, milling the roadway. Tomorrow they're planning on setting their curb stakes with curbing starting on Friday. That road, as long as the weather holds out, you know, we don't get 5 days of rain, we should be done in a couple weeks. Okay. The last thing I want to talk about is I mentioned last meeting, if you do have interest in submitting a local aid application, this Friday they are due. I have about 48 hours to get it put together and submitted to the state. So I would really appreciate a recommendation tonight if you're interested in doing something. Basically, I threw out a couple recommendations of Portland Road possibly, as that hooks into Highland Avenue and 36. I mentioned Shrewsbury Avenue. That's one of the main arteries downtown. I know Valley's been talked about. The state did not rule in favor of Valley last time. They did not fund it. I think it was predominantly because of it was more of a pipe project in their eyes, even though the roadway is definitely failing. And it's a dead-end street. It goes to a pump station, which they weren't too keen on either. The criteria was tough for them. I can certainly resubmit it if you want to, but I mean, like I said, it was shot down once. I'm open to any suggestions. Basically whatever the council wants.
We know we have an issue we talked about tonight on Bay Street. Can that be included as part of that project, or talked about as part of that project? Have you been up there recently?
Oh, I have been.
I don't mean that.
No.
Yeah, I mean, I was up there Tuesday night. It's everything you're saying.
Right, agreed. I can certainly apply for that. It hooks into Woodland Street, which was previously funded by the state.
Right.
So they may look at it as a viable option and seeing what's happening up there.
I mean, it's clearly something that's we need to do something. So we have a round of grants coming up.
Right. I don't know how they would feel about the wall issue, but at least the road.
We have that on what we're doing already.
Right. The wall could be something we do kind of. Exactly, and then the roadway itself, we could continue that further down and take care of what we need to do to try to keep some of that drainage from going onto the properties on the downstream side. I can certainly, if that's what council's flavor is, I can certainly submit that.
Okay. What do you guys think?
I just limited. let me make a pitch for Valley.
There's no wrong answer.
The point for Valley is the, Valley from Shore Drive to the pump station. At this point, it's got a corrugated steel pipe that is 30 years past its prime. It's collapsing. We have steel plates now covering the road. All right. And the pump isn't able to drain Bay Avenue because it can't get water to it.
Okay.
And what I'm suggesting is to modify our previous application and don't include the pipe work. All right, but get them to cover the road part of it while we separately do the pipe project, because the pipe has to be done.
Are we,
And that's the other part of it. All of these projects will be done automatically if we get the pump project started, including the North Street Station. I don't know, if you're reaching for road projects to do.
Oh, no, this one.
Right. So
what do you think about road project? I'm suggesting the street.
Bay Street up, I rode down Shrewsbury Avenue, and I think
That's for veterans.
Down
Wind and sea and like that.
to the dead end, Dutch County, all the way to Millis.
Okay. Can we, let me ask you this. We do Shrewsbury. Do we have a schedule that we are going off of? So in other words, I don't know off the top of my head when we did every last road. I know we did research. Is there a real big schedule?
There isn't. We don't have one.
A little up downtown.
Right. We haven't done that. I could put one together. I talked to Mr. Hill about that actually, about possibly putting something together so we could keep it, keep a running cycle of what we've done.
Comprehensive schedule.
Shrewsbury was done in the 90s. I believe was the last time it was done.
20 years.
Yeah.
Would they look favorably on because it's up a state road?
I believe they would. It comes off a county road. It comes off a county road. You've got business on it. It's a main artery, one of the main arteries downtown. One of the three main was like I count Shrewsbury, Shore Drive, and Bay.
So it would look less favorably on Bay Street, you think?
You know what, Frank? They funded Woodland. Yeah, they funded Woodland. Bay's a small street. Probably the more favorable would be Shrewsbury.
Okay. So do Shrewsbury under this, it's easy to agree upon, but get something going for Bay Street.
I'll see what I can find for Bay Street, sure.
What Chris was saying on Valley.
Exactly. Valley definitely needs it too. There's no doubt about it.
That's probably part of the whole project.
Yes, agreed.
Okay. So then we're going to go.
Shrewsbury, you got it.
Veterans to,
Veterans to, yeah, start to finish.
Okay. Shrewsbury, Veterans to Millis. So in essence, Bay Avenue on Shrewsbury, all the way down to Millis.
I have another question. Washington Avenue. What is the status?
Well, we did the first part of the road. All right. The pipe is still, I believe, tied up in legal, Bruce.
Yes.
So we don't have drainage of that part, that side of the town going into drainage.
I understand that. That's the situation that's beyond my control right now. I mean, there are other ways we could possibly, do it. Maybe reroute the pipe out to a different area. It's a costly fix, or see what legal gets us through and replace that last 20 feet of pipe and punch it out to the bulkhead where it's always been. I mean, right now it's kind of where we're sitting.
There wasn't an easement to begin with?
There was an easement. Mr. Rosiak wouldn't sign it.
No, I mean originally.
No.
Originally.
There's a lot of that downtown.
Yeah. Okay. That's it? Yes.
Gail, you visited Bayside.
Yep.
Could you give me an update on what's going on there?
I met Mr. Hill. We talked about the berm situation I talked to you about up on top. We're looking into trying to find a way to stabilize the sinkhole. We have talked to DPW to get a berm, an asphalt berm across that road to deflect the water coming down and across into the other inlet that's still in good shape and away from that affected area. That's the first part of it. And then trying to stabilize that hole there is the second part. That's the bigger challenge of the two. But DPW will get that berm done quickly. Okay?
Thank you.
We're gonna go to public portion, Kimberly Scorpio.
Kim Scorpio, 315 Shore Drive. I keep seeing various articles and blogs about raising the town.
Okay.
And I understand that the Army Corps of Engineers is looking at a lot of things, and I don't know if these are the same quotes that people are just rehashing, or if you're being interviewed recently.
No,
Okay.
last interview was months ago.
Okay, so they're just rehashing the same.
Yeah, what's happened is they've come back now with a pretty detailed
Well,
plan.
that's not my question. My question
Oh.
is, since you seem to know so much about backfilling the town,
Say no so much.
well,
I said
well, you
include it
keep
as an
pushing,
option. I don't
you
know.
keep pushing the plan. What happens to my garage and my office?
I didn't push.
Do
I didn't
I-
push any plan. Their original plan was to build a wall in a town that is below sea level that would create a bathtub. All we did was expose other ideas and say, please consider.
You have no knowledge of
I
any
don't.
pumps or valves or anything that would be included in their plan?
Not at all. They're coming to a meeting. When, are they coming to the October meeting?
I believe we're working on floor plan
To lay it out in detail what they're planning.
Okay, let me just specify that, should you be interviewed again by some new news organization, can you please specify that this is not the only plan that you
I think we did,
personally?
they just didn't repeat it.
Oh,
To be very honest.
again, you may have said it once
Yeah.
and people are just regurgitating it.
Sure.
Because I don't think the press about raising the town will bring in anybody.
Okay.
A developer won't come in, a homeowner won't come in, a new home buyer won't come in, because there's no certainty as to whether or not they're gonna lose their ground floor, or did they raise high enough, is there gonna be dirt, you know?
Right.
And I think it raises a lot of uncertainty in the town. So just going forward, be a little more specific that you're open to a lot more options than just this one.
And hopefully they report it. No question.
Thank you.
Melissa Peterson?
Melissa Peterson, 17 Bay Street. Two things. On the adequate notice that says that a written notice must be given 48 hours prior to anything going on, I've kind of noticed a pattern that, and on July 3rd, that one of the last meetings, we were all looking at the meeting, Ms. Cummings had said, well, I give it to the newspaper 48 hours. It's not my problem if they don't actually post it. And there's a deadline for both newspapers for 3 o'clock. So she sends it for 5 o'clock, it's not gonna make it till Wednesday.
So you're not getting your active notice.
Exactly.
Transmit it to them.
I'm sorry?
It's done. Once I found out that the mayor called that special meeting, that was the only notice.
It's
I
for
could
any meeting,
provide.
like today's meeting
You
didn't
mean
come
in
in till
general?
today, it wasn't on Tuesday, so I'm assuming they sent it after 3 o'clock.
Published in January.
There's no meeting for any regular meeting, any
Okay,
agenda
so what you're
items,
saying
it's
is a
supposed to be
special meeting,
posted
we're transmitting at say 6 o'clock on a Friday, you're not seeing it in the paper till
Wednesday.
It depends on when I'm informed that there will be a special meeting. If I don't get enough time to meet the deadlines, there's nothing I can do.
Then you're in violation,
I'm sorry?
you're in violation.
No, I'm not.
The Open Public Meetings Act requires you to give notice to the newspaper, not to publish.
I think we have to hit on this point too, the scheduled meetings that were posted in January, it's that.
Yeah.
Never again.
Correct.
No, it's a special.
So when we'll vote on January 1st every year for the schedules for planning and zoning and council, that's noticed then, it's never re-noticed again for every meeting, only unless it's a special meeting.
Then on the agenda items was not posted until today.
Okay, you're talking about the agenda.
Either or, the 48-hour notice, the adequate notice, is not to, it doesn't specify that you are just to give it to the newspaper, it's that the public gets the notice 48 hours
What are you
prior.
reading?
I'm reading something that I printed out it's Open Public Meetings Act. It's number D, adequate notice. And there's a paragraph that explains what the adequate notice is for any type of, the agenda, regular, special, or rescheduled meeting. It needs 48 hours to the public, not to the newspaper, to the public. And I would like if we could try to get it in before the 3 o'clock
So you
deadline
have
of
it,
the
if we put
newspaper.
it in for
But see, you're missing the point, because we don't send the agenda to the paper for every meeting.
It's
You said I don't get it.
public notice, having access to public notice. So whether you're sending something to the newspaper or you're posting something online, it needs to be done 48 hours before the meeting.
The agenda does not.
What does that say?
The agenda is of any regular.
To the extent, no. But you're not required to publish the agenda for every meeting. The agenda is available, it's posted.
And the bulletin, bulletin board.
It's on the public bulletin board.
Ray, Melissa, what you're saying is you'd like
You're
to see the
confusing
agenda
notice
Friday
in the
or Saturday.
newspaper of
I'd like to see the agenda by Monday.
No, by Friday
Or
or
Wednesday.
Saturday the week before.
Monday would be
By
good,
Monday.
Wednesday.
Monday,
Would be good.
okay? Do we have copies?
With the agenda, it's not always finalized.
Okay, I understand, but do we have copies available for all?
They are only available when I get them on Friday.
So when we get it sent out, technically it's available for all that's posted. We post on the website. When does it go on?
Usually days and such.
So you got it on Monday?
They can have it on the same day, received.
When do you get it?
This one,
So it's on Monday?
on by one.
I didn't want to check the website Monday.
It was today, 3:45.
Today,
Yeah, I sent it on Monday.
we gotta do.
That's when you printed it out. We're talking about on Monday.
I looked for it on Monday, I looked for it on Tuesday, it was not on there.
Sounds like you got a streamline.
Maybe if we had better
Let's try to have it on the
website.
website. Monday,
As long as it's understood that if that's the agenda to the extent known.
that it could change.
That's fine.
But we'll have a basic framework of, we're trying to have it by Monday.
Issue number 2 is the second house that dropped.
Let's just speak up. I apologize. I missed it.
Excuse me, Kelly said that this was posted today, as well, but don't we constantly,
Well, it
it
doesn't
could
bother.
be a change,
You
right?
saw
Right, I
it.
understand that.
But it's,
Yeah, that's fine.
so 3:45, that's what
Right,
she said.
right after it.
And secondly, the house that was
On
dropped
second,
on second. On the last meeting, it was kind of asked specifically about that house, and if anything, since Sandy, and especially since the last house dropped, are we gonna do anything different to ensure, because those little lolly columns that had been up for, I think it was like a month and a half, that everybody kind of drove by and looked at it, and Dale even said you took a second look at it because it seemed a little bit weird. When
they'll
things
talk
look
about
like
what you
that,
can talk about that and what we would put in place, obviously, pre that house. That's it, the first one.
Well, since that house fell Friday night, there was a couple things that was seen in the debris that I know the building officials working with the DCA on. I really can't comment on it. I will say this, that by order of the table by the mayor, no more permits will be issued for drone builders in town. I know they had one other application that that they were relieved of their duties, so to speak, from a homeowner. With regards to the first one, basically, we're looking at a tougher screening process. I know Mr. Vitale follows the state guidelines, DCA. We are looking at a more stringent, say, screening.
That they can challenge.
Yeah, right. They could challenge it, but we'd like to try to put something a little stronger in place. I mean, obviously, we don't want to see these happen. You know, obviously, nobody wants to see this happen. You know, thankfully, nobody was hurt in either one of these instances. But we don't want to make it a third either. You know, so we're looking to try to make more of a stringent guideline for the borough. So if you want to lift a house in the borough of Highlands, you're going to follow more guidelines than what the state requires you to. And that's what we're trying to do right now.
and if somebody comes, and no offense, but I understand that everybody's swamped, but when people are looking at it, we bring it to the council's attention, like, that does not look right, and you guys kind of shrug it off and say it's already been signed off on, that needs to change. We're not doing it to bust your chops, we're doing it because we're concerned.
Understood.
Just the one fact that I didn't know until tonight is that house had a set of drawings that specified the lonely columns that was signed by a DE.
How
At
about an
that
architect?
point, we really can't dispute that.
And then over above that, there was more than just a shrug for the people on the same side.
So we get to a point, Paul Vitale looks for that seal. Once he gets that seal, that's good to go. Are we gonna look after that engineer? Yes. Are we gonna look after the contractor? Absolutely.
On both sides.
On both sides. But the reality is, we get a signed drawing That's that sign with a number authorized by the state, that's their responsibility. So, granted, all of us who are not as technical sort, that doesn't make a lot of sense. Absolutely, but it was signed. I don't know what more we could have done with that one.
And right now, it's not fully determined. The design did look erratic. It didn't look it didn't look like the other houses in town. It didn't look like Carolyn's house. It didn't look like a lot of the other houses. But right now, without sitting here and telling you with 100% certainty, maybe the design did work, and maybe it was constructed. Some of the things that you saw from when in the debris, maybe the construction wasn't adequate, or maybe it was a combination of each.
My understanding is the masons were supposed to come back and put concrete around those.
Yeah, right. It wasn't done yet. Right, it wasn't done yet.
What I don't know why they didn't come back. Did they have other jobs?
Well,
should there have been a time limit? Either we flag it, saying you guys have to be flagged, because you either have to come back and finish within a certain time.
If I could go a step further, just an FYI, they bounced a $60 check to me for their permits. $60.
Wow. No, that's actually a little wrong. This is a 50 and a 10.
Right, three times.
What about the periodic?
Yeah, right.
Inspection?
You got to realize.
Right, and that's
Why have you not inspected at its earliest stage?
Nah, you take a lot of time.
right. Paul inspected it.
Gail, I'm sorry. We got to go back.
I'm done. Go ahead.
Thank you, Carol.
Carol,
Did you know you were next on the
I knew I was.
Wow.
330 Shore Drive. I read the paper that Keysburg is getting a good deal of money, and the Army Corps is going to begin pumping sand there.
Where was this? I apologize.
Keysburg.
Okay.
Malone had a big announcement in the paper. Keysburg is getting a lot of sand pumped in by the Army Corps of Engineers, blah, blah, blah. I have written to everybody in the county, everybody in the state, about not forgetting this part of
The borough of Highland.
the borough of Highlands particularly, because I told the guy from the county, they come to Union Beach, and they come to Earl, and then they go to the ocean.
Who's the guy who told you?
Carol,
But anyway,
out of fairness, everybody involved, a lot of that stuff from the Army Corps was to repair a project that they built that failed.
Maybe the town paid for that, or the municipality paid for it?
No, the Army Corps most likely paid for
They
it.
revisited their.
They had to revisit and repair it. A lot of it, I'm not saying all of it, but a lot of it was to repair their project.
They're getting a big deal of money to have that done.
Oh, absolutely. Well, that's, to me, God, that flood wall doesn't work.
Get on that bandwagon.
It's a big problem.
Get on that bandwagon, be sure they don't shoot out to the ocean instead of coming down the coast. We are a part of
That is not the plan. The plan is to come down the coast. and
Yeah, I know, that's what they tell me, everybody's told me that, I have it all in writing.
Tara brought up a good point. They're also coming north from Monmouth, so it's not just this way now.
They just finished Monmouth Beach last week, and they're moving up to Sea Right, and Monmouth Beach is on the ocean. I know that they're still, they're coming north. Well, you keep after them, every week, they're coming,
That end is fine.
that's it.
Ms. Mandrock?
I'm in 268 Bayside Drive. Gail, you're talking about Bayside Drive being paved.
I didn't say it's paved, I said they started it.
No, they never told us they were coming to work.
They said they gave notices.
They didn't give notices to anybody. Everybody was locked in. They put dirt in front of
You
my
never got a
driveway.
notice, Mr. Mandrock? Nobody did that?
The no parking signs didn't tip you off or anything?
None of it.
You know, the notice, there was no parking signs posted, and they noticed.
Still got a notice.
Right, they did notice. Actually, I approved the notice that they sent out.
They did. They said they put signs up on the poles, which they had there since June.
They never sent it to the mail.
They were supposed to talk to everybody individually. If they didn't do that, I will take care of that in the morning.
Take care of that in the morning.
And the other thing is, you said you're gonna put curbs.
Yeah,
Well, they were in front of my son's house today, and they were in front of Mike Kennedy's house, and the rest of them down there, and they said, oh, we're gonna build a berm.
no, it's a rolled curb. It's not a full height curb, it's a rolled curb. So your son and his neighbors can still go over the curb to park, to straddle the curb to get their front lawns. It's a rolled curb. It'll be concrete.
They're gonna put a roll curb up there.
Yes,
And when are they gonna take the dirt away, contaminated soil,
as they move along.
as they move along?
Yeah.
And they, just what they did, they come up by my house, and they blocked my driveway off the wall, blocked up what they dug up, and dumped it front of it. I had to get them to move it so I could get my cars out.
I will discuss that with them in the
We
morning.
couldn't
We'll
get
try to get a
down
little better
Matthew
idea of the
Street.
plan.
The only way into Bayside Drive was King Street, and the only way out was King Street. They blocked everything up.
Oh, it's a tight road. There's really no place to go up there.
First time they ever did a street, and they had to do it in Island. And I know we're gonna have trouble.
You know what? It's 2 weeks. Hopefully, it's unfortunately it's a low bidder process.
We were told we were gonna get paid up to King Street. You said it here in the meeting.
I know, but you know what, Mr. Mandar, I told you before, we ran out of money, my friend. You know, Exxon is covering this cost for what we're doing now. We didn't have the money to go further with
This bid was supposed to have come in lower than what we got for Exxon.
it. No, it actually was right around the estimate.
It was a little low.
Yeah.
The other thing I wanna know is they didn't pick up the recycling on Bayside Drive.
I'll tell the contractor to do that tomorrow, too.
Get the garbage picked up. When are they gonna pick it up?
I'll get on it.
Okay. Carmine, One Scenic Drive, 404. Don? That's it? I apologize, I can't read after 11 o'clock.
Couple things. First of all, I do want to thank the mayor and council for listening, paying attention. Of course, from my perspective, I'm glad it's not a sensitive debate. I do want to thank you, though. I know firsthand what it's like to be a member of the council, and I know that most people get complaints, and I know that for the most part, thanks as well. So I just want to say thank you. Couple things. The mayor has said that the current tax on shallow wells is $80,000. I did see something that I came across in writing today that in 1996, shallow well was paying $93,000. Now, I don't know about anybody else, because I don't live in $93,000, but my taxes have not gone down.
I don't control the taxes for the record. People who appealed in the last few years have been a 98% appeal limit. I have no idea when they appealed it if they did.
That's, your taxes have gone down since 93,000 to 88,000. The other thing, I think I understand the need for revenue. I think this is, I've only been here since 2000, but I have a lifelong attachment to the area. And I certainly think that Highlands is a wonderful community with a lot of potential. I think that before we make any kind of grand development, we really need to have a comprehensive appraisal of what we can expect, what we want for the future of this town. I think you've heard, not only tonight but other times, that there's a lot of talent in the community. It would be, I think there are people who would be perfectly willing to volunteer their time and maybe have a comprehensive kind of task force with ideas about what we can do to increase revenue and to further develop the community.
I think that's happening on the long-term recovery right now. We could expand that.
Maybe,
Oh, yeah.
maybe it could be expanded.
I'm sure we could do that. We look at the master
Have
plan.
particular counts.
Okay. Thank you. Pauline Jennings?
Thank you. I really want to thank council members individually and collectively for coming to a very reasonable decision. I understand it's been a torturous thought process and working process that you had to put into this, far over and above probably what you thought you signed up for when you put this on. But thank you.